pressure looks good.
Following up. Roger, roll with Planet. Water towers fly! Yikes. You bet. Concur. We don't need any more of these.
All right, microphone check early in the morning over here. Let's bring that audio in the background down because it's windy out there. Welcome to the live stream today. Let me know that you can hear me back in the studio or whatever. I'm John Galloway. I'll be your host this morning, standing by for a launch for a United Launch Alliance this morning. It is a launch for the X-37B Spaceplane? Can I say that? I think that's what's going on. But we've got Chris Gebhardt down at Cape Canaveral right now. He's at the ITL Causeway. He's standing by with remote video. And I'll tell you what, we were doing the checks this morning, and it is windy out there. So all this morning, we are going to be fighting wind. In fact, I think this morning we've got a, last I checked, we were on 40% go, so a 60% chance of violation down at Cape Canaveral. So not a high probability that we're going to go today, but you know how it goes. They're going to spool it up. They're going to make sure everything is ready to go. They're going to go through the process, and we'll see if we get any updates on the weather. Let's try this right now. Let me see if we've got the remote feed coming in real quick. Survey says, look at that. It's a gray overcast day. This is the camera. Chris Gebhardt's got it down at the ITL Causeway. And what we're going to do is this. We're going to be fighting with wind noise. Trust me, it is super windy out there. You can see the chop on the water. But let's go over to Chris and see if we can get him. Just one second. And Chris, it is windy out there. How's it going, man?
Our mic technology is today as well. Yes, good morning from the Cape Canaveral Air Force Station here in Florida, where, yeah, you can see the weather system that we are dealing with. This is actually a tropical low that came over the state of Florida last night. This is the back end of it from our vantage point here on the Cape, but it is definitely wreaking havoc with weather. In true weather format, what we really needed was rain here in Central Florida, and it was a tropical system with no rain, as happens, or without a lot of rain. There are embedded rain showers here today as well, but yes, it is a 60% chance of weather violating our launch constraints as we head toward the 8:24 a.m. Scheduled launch time for this mission. Tori Bruna had tweeted earlier that we were observed no-go conditions and that it was very, very windy. In addition to the cumulus clouds and the rain clouds that you see around us here in this range of, ground winds, also a big concern for the NASASpaceflight, especially in the configuration that it flies in today, which is the 501 configuration, meaning there are no solid rocket boosters, so it is relying solely on its liquid.
And hey, Chris, Das here. We need to switch you over to Discord. Chat is having almost no luck hearing you, so we are going to swap to our other audio channel. Okay. All right, give me just one second. Sorry to interrupt there, but everybody was saying that they were having severe issues understanding you. So give me just about 1 second here to swap over our audio, and we will continue on. Put that audio right there. All right, Chris, how are you doing now?
Well, is that any better?
Chat can answer that one for us. We've switched Chris G over to a different audio channel, and let's see if we can hear Chris better. Chris, again, tell us one more time where you're at and what's going on.
Yeah, so maybe you could hear me now. I don't know. Let us know. I'm going to keep talking until Das can let me know what chat is saying. But yes, it is a very stormy, windy morning here at Cape Canaveral Air Force Station. We had a tropical weather system pass over us yesterday. This is the tailing end of it for us here in Central Florida. Really thick clouds, rain. In fact, it's raining at Pad 39B right now at the Kennedy Space Center and over at the Kennedy Space Center. This is when I become really happy that I remembered bags to put over the camera and equipment today, if we so need it. But yeah, 60% chance of weather violation today. And Tory Bruno did tweet about an hour ago that it was an observed no-go condition. So they were no-go for weather at that point. And it's very windy, as you can tell, not just from our audio. Our microphones are not the only thing battling the wind. It is the Atlas V as well. Very, very strong ground winds here that are a problem for liftoff today, in large part because the Atlas is flying with no solid rocket boosters. So it is much more prone to being blown around in the initial seconds of liftoff when it's just got its liquid-fueled RD-180 engine on it, because it takes it a while to get off the launch pad and clear the lightning protection system towers and everything at the launch pad. So it's gonna really come down to, can we find a hole in the weather? The good thing about the tropical system is that the back side of it, the western side of it, is dissipating, but whether or not that will happen in enough time or there can find a hole in the weather is what we're going to wait for as we watch the Atlas fully fueled on Launch Complex 41 here, venting happily away, but we will see. One cool thing I did want to show you, because it is within our vantage point, so that's the Atlas V on its launch pad at Slick 41, and if I zoom out just a little bit, what's that but the Falcon 9 on pad 40, where it is getting ready to launch just 19 and a half hours after the Atlas does today. Atlas is scheduled for 8:24 Eastern Time, 12:24 UTC. Falcon 9 is set to follow tomorrow morning on Sunday at 3:57 a.m. Eastern Time, or 7:57 UTC time. So it's going to be a very busy weekend here at Cape Canaveral. If the Atlas is not able to find a hole in the weather to get off the ground today, they do have range priority since they are a U.S. Space Force and a U.S. national government mission. So they would try again tomorrow when the weather forecast is much, much better. And if that were to happen, Falcon 9 would simply move to Monday. And they would remain about 19 and a half hours apart from one another. One of the reasons that this is possible, not just because of the range upgrades, but because the range personnel who are working these two particular missions, there are only 3 people total across the entire Cape Canaveral Air Force Station launch teams that overlap between the Atlas today and the Falcon tomorrow. So that's why they're able to go so quickly and rapidly one after the other. Also, a big contribution to that is the fact that Falcon 9's flight termination system is automated and controlled by Falcon 9's onboard computers, whereas the Atlas's is manual and requires the range and someone on the ground to literally push a button to destroy the rocket if so needed. So all those variety of factors lead us to 2 launches within 19 and a half hours off the Cape here this weekend. So yeah, it's exciting, and hopefully we can find a hole in the weather, but Das, that's all we've got now. And because we had to switch the audio, I actually don't have the mission countdown audio. So maybe we can get an update on how the count is progressing right now.
Yeah, gotcha. We may actually go over to Michael Baylor for that. I don't know, Michael, if you're still listening to the launch audio.
Yeah,
What we got?
I'm here. So I will continue to monitor the countdown for us, since we are not allowed to be broadcasting that. And if anything happens of interest, I will report it. But as of now, everything appears to be proceeding fine with the pre-launch preparations. We're just waiting to see what happens with that weather.
Yeah. And just to sort of, before we start taking questions, if you've got any questions, go ahead and throw them up in chat and we'll get them answered here on air. Very quickly, I wanted to say thank you and welcome to Socorro, who's a new member. Welcome to Red Team on our membership for our YouTube channel. Thank you very much for that, and welcome aboard. But for the mission today, one of the things that is very different about this flight than what we are used to seeing is the semi-classified nature of the flight.
So unlike other U.S. government classified missions, we actually know what the vehicle looks like. We know what it's capable of doing in large part, and they actually being this the payload being to early.
Yep,
Overall,
Chris. Hey, Chris, 1 second. It sounds like you're breaking up a little bit
Weird.
there on us. Just 1 second.
Not-
Chat, again, we swapped over to the other audio, and it
me,
sounds like Chris is having some internet difficulties right now on his cell phone, that would be, because he's just providing secondary commentary over the cell phone there. Chris, can you still hear us?
Yeah, I could hear you loud and clear.
Okay, you're clear now. Go ahead and proceed. You were just breaking up really bad there for a second, but you were just saying.
Cool. What was the last thing that was said clearly?
You were talking about thanks to the new supporters for being on the channel, and that's when you started to hitch up.
Oh yes. So thanks to Socorro, a new member on our channel. Welcome to Red Team. And one thing that I wanted that's a little bit different about what we can expect from this particular mission versus others that we're used to seeing from the Atlas and from the Atlas V family is that this mission is kind of classified by the U.S. government, but also kind of not classified. It's weird. Normally classified missions from the U.S. government, we never see the payload. We never have any idea what's actually on board the rocket. We just know it's a spy satellite or a reconnaissance satellite or something like that. What's weird about this is it's a classified mission, but the U.S. government and the Space Force have actually released photographs of what the payload looks like. We know what the X-37B space plane looks like. We know how it's configured for this flight from the outside.
And I just put a picture up on screen of the X-37B in the fairing.
There we go. So that image that you're looking at right now, this is actually released by the U.S. government. So we know what it is. So why is the mission classified? Well, it's everything that's inside the X-37B. It's everything that it's going to do once it's on orbit, and it can open up its payload bay door, and it can deploy its solar panel and get power positive. And once there, it can remain on orbit for upwards of 700 or 800 days, as past OTV missions of the X-37B have done. But because it's kind of classified, United Launch Alliance will actually stop the broadcast of the launch at Atlas booster separation shortly after Centaur upper stage ignition. And that'll be the last we hear of it until either the Air Force confirms a good deployment and a good launch, or Tory Bruno and United Launch Alliance do their standard number that would indicate that the flight went as planned. But the cutoff of the launch and the live stream is actually at the request of the customer, the U.S. Space Force, which is weird because you would think, why can't we watch the launch if we already know what it's doing? Why can't we watch the launch if we know from all the hazard zones what orbital inclination? Those are all really good questions, but I don't try to understand how the U.S. federal government works. I just explain what their decision is. So that is that. So we won't actually get to see the entire launch. We won't get to see separation. We'll get up until about 5 minutes. And that's it for us today. So that's what we can expect as Atlas V goes up to space today. Again, if you've got any questions about this mission, about how they're doing 2 back-to-back missions within 19 and a half hours off the Eastern Range here in Florida, today for Atlas, tomorrow for Falcon 9. If you've got any questions about anything space related, throw them up in chat, and our producers will get them over to us so that we can answer them live on air too. And now the part of our broadcast that DOS really loves. Let us know where around the world you're watching from. We're a global community here at NASA Spaceflight. We don't just cover NASA missions. Obviously, we're here for United Launch Alliance today, and the Space Force will be here tomorrow for Starlink and SpaceX. And then we will be here, of course, at the end of the month for NASA and SpaceX for the crew launch out of 39A here. Targeted for the 27th of May at 16:32 Eastern Time, 2032 UTC. tremendous moment of human
32.
launches coming back to Florida after a nearly 9-year absence. So if you've got any questions about anything related to this mission, about anything coming up, let us know, and we will get it going.
So I can read some of those locations, Chris, if you want me to.
Yeah, definitely. Please do.
As always, there's a ton of people watching. We got France in there, Joseph Hazard, Netherlands. We got Philadelphia, USA. There's another Netherlands, Whitstable, Kent, UK. Denmark, Germany's in there. Straya, Kansas City, Old Australia. Let's see, Portugal, Taiwan, Surrey, UK, Argentina, Reykjavik, Iceland, Romania. It seems like the United States isn't awake yet, but the rest of the world is here. Somebody in Austin, Texas got up early. There's a Colorado, a California. I mean, y'all are watching from all over the map, so wherever you're hailing from, we appreciate you joining us here this morning. Go ahead, Chris.
Indeed. And Warhawk, thanks so much for the $5 super chat. We really appreciate it. Warhawk saying it's looking a bit grim for launch. Maybe we better go buy a kite and launch that. Hey, if people would watch a live stream of me trying to fly a kite, we could do that.
We could put a camera
I can't
on
promise
a
it
kite.
would go well, but, you know.
I could totally put a drone camera on a kite and get a live feed off of it if you want.
There you go. You know, one thing that I can't show you because of our angle, like I was able to show you the Falcon 9 pad earlier because it's within our direct line of sight to pad 40, pad 41 with the Atlas. But what I really would love to show you but can't is that at 39A on the Kennedy Space Center side, so north of this pad, just off to the left-hand side of your screen, is where the Falcon 9 that will launch Crew and where the Crew Dragon is processing inside of its hangar at 39A right now ahead of rollout and static fire. We have a fully fueled Atlas V on the next pad further south, the one we're looking at right now, getting ready to launch today. We have the Falcon 9 one pad further south on pad 40, getting ready to launch Starlink tomorrow. And one pad further south from that is Slick 37B, where the Delta IV Heavy is undergoing its processing and getting ready for payload mate for a classified National Reconnaissance Office mission in August. So all the active launch pads here at the Kennedy Space Center and Cape Canaveral Air Force Station either have a rocket on them or have a rocket in their processing hangar getting ready to roll out for a mission. So the world may have come to a screeching halt in a lot of ways because of this pandemic, but our launch architecture and our launch services have not here in the United States. And it is worth noting again, for those of you just joining us, that one of the reasons that we are able to be here is because of the 45th Space Wing and their head of media operations, Jim Williams, who found a way to have us all on base and allow us to keep coming on while following all of the guidelines that we're supposed to, while social distancing, while wearing masks, while doing everything. So the 45th Space Wing and Jim Williams in particular, a huge thank you to him for everything he's been able to do for media. And a huge thank you to Jim, too, for the end of the month, because with this pandemic, when NASA had to severely restrict the number of media they were going to allow on base, because with rocket launches, if they explode shortly after liftoff, we have to run inside when we're on Kennedy Space Center property. We can't do what we do on the Cape side, which is just get in our car and drive away because we're far enough out. So when NASA had to severely restrict the number of media allowed in for the crew flight at the end of the month Demo 2, Jim Williams actually went to them and offered to take media onto the Cape side as well, which normally does not happen for NASA missions from Kennedy. And that allowed us, as one of the media organizations, to have access. So again, huge thank you to Jim for everything that he's been able to do for this. And all right, so James Brown, we got our first question here. James Brown, so James Brown wants to know, why is there a service module on the X-37B spaceplane, and where did this idea come from, and why did they do that? So, yes, so this spaceplane, on the bottom of it, and Michael, if we could throw that image back up on screen of it when it was undergoing payload encapsulation, you can see what we mean. So there's a huge flaring skirt-like structure at the base of the X-37B, which is its service module. It provides some propulsion, data, avionics, things like that, that allow it to remain on orbit and do these different maneuvers on orbit and stay up there for 2.5 up to 3 years. And then that is what they use to do the deorbit burn, and then they discard it, and it is destroyed in the atmosphere. And the X-37B then re-enters just like the space shuttles did as a glider aircraft, and S-turns and maneuvers itself to the Kennedy Space Center's former shuttle landing facility, where it ends its mission.
And Chris,
So that's why the spaceplane has a service module. And yes, Michael, go ahead.
The picture of the fairing actually does not show the service module. I'm guessing because it's the first time they're flying with one. They're not showing it because it's classified, but they just show the tail of the plane and no service module.
Oh, okay. There are examples. I thought I had seen a photograph of this one, but maybe I was mistaken.
I don't think we've ever seen a service module of an X-37 before.
Gotcha. So there's that element to what the service module does for it as well, and of course, because it's a classified system, there's all the possibility that the service module also carries other things that the U.S. government is testing. Because one thing the X-37B that we know it's designed to do is to test experimental technologies for long durations in low Earth orbit. Of course, it most likely does other things as well as just simply testing them, given the various orbits it's been put into over its first 5 missions, and the one it'll be put into on this one as well. But that is what we know about the service module and what it does for this particular flight. I wish I could tell you more, but the classified nature of it, yeah.
And they have said that the addition of the service module does increase the amount of experiments that they're able to do.
There we go. Whether that means it carries experiments or it just carries additional fuel to allow them to stay up longer to do more, that's an interesting question, Michael.
Indeed.
Yeah. Again, one of those things. I wish we knew an answer for it, but we don't, just because of the classified nature of it. Another great question here. What is the goal of this launch? From Kamesh Gamer. I'm so sorry if I said that first name wrong. Of your handle. What is the goal of this launch? So the goal of this launch is to launch the one of the 2 X-37B spaceplanes for the United States Space Force. The X-37Bs are basically mini space shuttles. They do not carry people. They've never been designed to carry people. They are meant to be free-flying, autonomous missions that test new technologies for the U.S. Space Force, the U.S. government. It most likely performs some clandestine reconnaissance operations as well, given that it's for the Space Force and the Air Force before the Space Force became a thing. But other than that, we really don't know. And these missions can last anywhere from like as short as a few hours to upwards of 2.5 to 3 years. It will be fascinating to see how long this mission stays up. Each mission has stayed up longer than the previous one to date, with I believe the record is somewhere in the 700-day range, and it was the 5th flight of the X-37B, the one that was launched in 2016 on a Falcon 9 rocket. And that one stayed up for about 2.5 years, which was really impressive to see. But beyond that, we don't know. There's a lot of speculation based on its launch windows of what it might be doing in the immediate days after liftoff, but we don't know. All we know is that it's inside of the Atlas V. That's all we know. And Al Arce wants to know what's the cloud ceiling and how does that affect range safety? Yeah, so the cloud ceiling itself is not the problem for Atlas today. It's the thick cumulus clouds that it would have to fly through, and its flight through precipitation and ground winds that are the main concern today. Sometimes we do have visual rules where you have to have visual contact with the rocket through a certain flight altitude. But that visibility constraint was not listed as one of the major ones for today. Just flight through cumulus clouds, precipitation, and ground winds were the main concerns today, which would cause us to stop, because what you don't want to do in these cumulus clouds is fly through them, because if you have freezing material, freezing ice, or freezing water rather, inside of them, you don't want the rocket going through a potential ice cloud inside of a cumulus cloud. Cumulus clouds can also produce rain. They can also produce and trigger lightning. Lightning wasn't a real concern for today, but there are a whole host of reasons why you don't want to fly through really, really thick cumulus clouds, but that you can fly through other types of clouds. But that's what we'll be waiting to hear today, is if we can find a hole in the weather for cumulus clouds. I mean, right now it looks like there's a big, dreary cloud literally hanging right over the launch pad, as you can see. So.
Oh wow, yeah. Look at that.
So how we're gonna find a hole in the weather today, I don't know. But stranger things have happened. You might be asking, with such an abysmal forecast, with such abysmal observed conditions, why would we come out for a mission that has a 60% chance of scrubbing because of weather? Well, the answer is because, having done this for over 12 years, having grown up here, I've seen weather forecasts that were issued that were 100% go, no chance of weather violating constraints at all. And the missions have scrubbed because it was pouring down rain, it was thundering and lightning, the winds were crazy. But the forecast said 100% go chance, right? And then I've seen missions that had 90% no-go weather odds and launched into crystal clear skies. So it happens, and it's just the flip of the coin of where you land on that percentage during the day. So we always come out and we always bring these to you, even if the weather looks like it absolutely won't cooperate. But that's why we have backup launch days, and this is why this mission has backup days tomorrow on Sunday, and another backup day on Monday as well. So that is definitely where we are right now. Andrew wants to know, in the unlikely event of an anomaly, does the X-37B have the ability to perform a landing, whether that be a water landing or a transoceanic landing in Europe, or just come back and ballistically land? That is an absolutely great question. And the answer to which is no, it has none of that ability, because it rides inside of the payload fairing of the Atlas V. And if the rocket were to have a problem, X-37B would not be in a controllable state inside of that payload fairing to be recovered in the event of a launch anomaly. And since X-37B that we know of doesn't have the type of propulsion systems that would be needed to keep going to Europe to land there, or to turn around and come back and perform a return to launch site abort landing. It doesn't have that capability because it rides inside the payload fairing. But excellent question there. Oh, Ben and Jerry's ice cream. Now I'm hungry. Wants to know, what is your favorite rocket and why? Okay, so here's how I answer that question. My favorite rocket is hands down the space shuttle. It was by far the most versatile and most unique of the rockets that we have flown to date. And everything that it did and everything that it gave us in preparation for the International Space Station, in terms of international cooperation, in terms of microgravity science research, and everything like that, my answer is the space shuttle. So,
Nice.
yes. It also helps that we don't fly that anymore, so I don't have to pick a current one. But that's my actual answer. So if you are just joining us, I'm Chris Gebhardt. I'm the assistant managing editor of NASA Spaceflight. I've got my colleagues Das and Michael. Guys, why don't you say hi and take it away for a few minutes here?
Hey, how's it going, everybody? I'm here. Y'all, if y'all can hear me, Michael, you here?
Yes, I'm here too.
All right, good deal. So, like we were saying, it is a super windy day down there. Chris Gebhardt is on the ITL Causeway right now. That's just a couple miles away from the pad, and you can actually see some venting happening from just underneath the 5-meter payload fairing there on the Atlas. You see the the sort of vapors coming off and moving to the left-hand side of your screen there, coming off the rocket. So that's nominal. That means that they are doing stuff, even though that it's not a great weather outlook today. So we do appreciate Chris going out there, standing in the wind, rolling out. I don't even know what time he got up this morning. It's like 3 a.m. or something like that to get out there in time. But massive thanks for Chris to Chris for being out there, bringing us this live shot. And like I said, it's super challenging. It's windy as heck. You can see that the camera is getting blown around and sort of shaky there. Not the shakiest camera I've ever seen, but it's still got a little bit of a shake to it. And you see some cars driving by on the other causeway on the other side of the water there. But it is definitely a challenging environment, and we got nothing but praise for Chris G out there holding it down. We are going to do a couple technical checks here in just a bit when Chris gets back. What's the weather situation? I'm just reading some chat here. And I know we're actually live on both places right now. We're live on Twitch and we're live on YouTube. So,
and just to update the weather forecast.
Go ahead.
Weather remains no-go due to violation of the cumulus cloud rule. So that's something they're watching, but weather is currently no-go because of the cumulus cloud rule being violated.
I mean, I could believe it looking at the when Chris zoomed out the camera there. I could definitely believe that they were no-go. What's the window today, Michael? How long do we have to try and get this rocket in the air?
So it's a weird launch window today. We have 2 separate 10-minute windows to launch this rocket.
Okay.
The first of which is going to open at 9:24, or excuse me, 8:24 Eastern time. The second window opens about 2 hours later. I forget the exact time. I'm going to check it right now. But essentially, there's 2 10-minute windows. So it's not like a standard launch window where you have a set period for a certain amount of time. This is 2 separate chunks of time to launch in.
Gotcha.
And this is one of those interesting ones, Michael, because there was a report that seems to indicate that the weirdness of this launch window, where you've got like 2 hours 43 minutes, but you've only got 2 10-minute windows within there to launch, might be because it needs to pass close to another satellite on orbit, another U.S. satellite. Like that they might be trying to test something out in terms of taking pictures of each other in orbit or something like that. But there was a pretty cool analysis of the launch windows and how they align with another U.S. satellite that's up there.
I'm gonna post that link in the YouTube chat if anybody's curious.
The
theory is that a KH-11 reconnaissance satellite, which is basically a giant telescope that normally points at Earth for surveillance, will be used to make sure the heat shield on the X-37B is intact and everything went fine when it went through that launch, lots of vibrations. So we don't know the exact reason, that's complete speculation, but based on the 2 launch times, it appears that it could be possible they want to align the launch so that the X-37B passes close to a KH-11 reconnaissance satellite shortly after launch. And just the status update, the launch countdown has now gone into the planned hold at T-4 minutes. So that is the current status of the launch. And again, we're at a no-go for weather right now. And we will see if that changes over the next 33 minutes.
Yeah, I hope it does change in the next 33 minutes. But just to give you an idea of what we're dealing with here, this is the weather that we have to deal with around the launch site today. What? I mean, Chris, and you know, let me just help us out.
Yeah,
that's what's generally blowing toward us. Like,
Chris, I was going to say, even if it does launch,
maybe if you're a bit. Oh, sorry, Das.
No,
go ahead. Sorry.
No,
go
I was
ahead.
going to say, even if it does launch, we're going to see like 3 seconds of the rocket, and then it's going to be in the clouds. Like into the clouds at 30 feet.
Well, so more than 3 seconds, since it's the Atlas V and it lumbers off the launch pad in its current configuration. I think this is what's really cool. Because you're right, Das, we'd see it for probably about 45 seconds to a minute.
Yep.
But I think Brady Keniston and I at one point got curious about how long it takes the Atlas with no solid rockets to clear its lightning protection towers.
Right.
And I think we got to 14 seconds it takes for it to rise that high when it doesn't have solids.
Jeez.
So yeah, yeah, because it's a roughly the launch rate it's roughly a 700,000 pound vehicle with roughly 800,000 pounds force of thrust. So it doesn't, the Atlas without solids does not have a huge or a high thrust to weight ratio at liftoff. Which if you've ever built something in Kerbal Space that has like a perfect 1.0 thrust to weight ratio, you know, you like light those engines and you have to sit there and you have to wait for it to burn off some propellant and mass before it starts lifting. And yeah, that's kind of exactly what we've got here. It's just going to lumber its way off the pad today or tomorrow, whenever we get to go.
Cool. So you said today or tomorrow. I mean, what are we looking at in terms of a recycle here? So just in case we don't hit one of those windows, do we have an opportunity tomorrow or?
Yes, there are opportunities tomorrow, and there are opportunities on Monday. And Atlas V does have the range for itself tomorrow as its backup day. So this is how it works on the range, right? Is a rocket provider or rocket company comes in and says, like Atlas, right, and United Launch Alliance, they come in and they say, all right, we're going to be ready on May 16th. That's when we need the range. Here's the launch time that day, right? Even though it's classified.
Right.
And then they go, and in case we can't launch that day, we also want to book the following day as backup. And what the range does is they take those backup days and they are for the company that has requested them first and foremost. But what the range also does when another provider comes in like SpaceX and SpaceX says, we would like the range for Sunday the 17th, here's our launch time. And the range looks at it and says, okay, well, ULA requested that as a backup day. If they launch right on time on their prime day and don't need the backup, then SpaceX, you can have the 17th. But if Atlas scrubs on the 16th and needs its backup day that they've asked for, then Atlas takes priority over Falcon 9 for tomorrow. So that's how this will roll. Is Atlas will have priority unless it encounters a major issue and has to stand down for several days. Atlas will just have priority as we move through today, tomorrow, and Monday before Falcon 9 can get its chance.
Gotcha. Thank you. In chat, let me know this. I've made a little bit of a change here. I'm actually trying to put Chris's audio through one of those fancy AI noise filters. So you may have not noticed the change because I sort of switched it in the background there, but hopefully we're going to get a little bit less of that wind popping and stuff. I still hear it a little bit, and this is on a very sort of conservative setting, but we are trying one of the Discord actually noise filter, not the RTX one, but this is the crisp one. So Chris, you're going to see from chat if there's any improvement or anything like that. So we'll see.
I gotcha. This is all like good stuff too, because like one of the things, right, Das, that like you and I do with a lot of these missions is we use them to test, right? We use them to make sure that, you know, everything that we need to work for, you know, let's say a crew launch mission. Don't know why we need that.
Right.
But yeah, like we use these opportunities to test out new ways of doing things so that future streams can be better. So yes, you're learning with us.
You're learning with us. You're dealing with us. You're putting up with us. One of those things. Chris, there's another question that came through chat here. In terms of the range you were talking about, you know, this company has it, then they have it for the backup day. Does it ever happen where like maybe SpaceX will have it or ULA will have it, and then another higher priority mission comes in? Like say there's a Starlink and a DoD mission, right? Does the range shuffle things around for one or the other, or how do they deal with that? Is it just everybody gets together and they're nice to each other and they figure out, you know?
Yeah, so it's actually wonderfully a combination of both of those things that you just said. The main reason that Atlas has the priority on the range is because it is a national security mission.
Right.
It's for the U.S. Space Force. So anything that goes up from the Space Force, the Air Force, the National Reconnaissance Office, the DoD. You know, of course, the DoD is sort of the umbrella agency there. but yes, those missions do tend to get priority over commercial flights, and the Starlinks are commercial flights. They do have some element of national security to them, which is why they have been allowed to keep launching during the COVID-19 pandemic. But oops, sorry. The Falcon 9 made an appearance, made a guest appearance there. We'll make sure to credit it at the end of the show. Um, but yes, there is that balance, right? You look at who the provider is, you look at what the mission is, you look at who it's for. Is it commercial? Is it national security? Is it something else? And then if you do have two companies that come in at the same time and say we both want the same day, if one is not national security, if they're both like commercial missions, right, then they try to get the providers to work together and figure out, hey, like who actually wants that day, what can we do to make it work for everyone. And we wind up with instances like this, right, where you've got two missions within 19 and a half hours from one another, going up for that reason. What we also see in terms of the rocket companies working together, SpaceX normally static fires the Falcon 9 for Starlink missions the day before launch, which should be today, but they can't do that because Atlas has the range. So they had to static fire earlier in the week, which they were more than willing to do to accommodate. And that way everyone stays on track. And back in August, when we had an Atlas 5 Falcon 9 double header where Falcon 9 went first and Atlas went second, as opposed to this double header where Atlas is going first and then Falcon 9, we actually saw United Launch Alliance in that instance in August of two companies working together actually roll their vehicle out early, do some of their pre-launch tests early, just so that Falcon 9 could then have the range to launch back in August. So mixture of both. And everyone is usually a good player with one another out here because they know that they're going to end up being in that same situation, having to ask another provider like, hey, can we have an extra day? And it helps when you go to ask that other provider, can we have an extra day and can you delay if you've delayed for them or you've helped them in the past?
And just the status update, weather is currently no go, and the odds of a launch of a go conditions today have decreased. Weather is currently only 20% chance of go. So
we're up to, yeah. So and what I zoomed back is that's a rain curtain behind the rocket heading toward 39A and 39B. So yes, it's not surprising that our probability of violation has increased to 80% throughout the window. Yeah, and this is this is really when we get to the window and we're actually able to see what the weather has actually done versus what the forecast said it would do. This is when we see those probability of violation forecasts going either down or up, which is usually a good indication of where we're going to end up for the day. So the fact that we got a worse weather forecast does not exactly bode well for getting off the ground today.
God. Yeah,
Yeah.
down to 20% to go. So everybody, that always gets a little bit confusing where we talk about, oh well, it's an 80% chance of violation. What does that mean? That doesn't mean 80% go. 80% POV means 20% go. So you'll get both numbers, but right now we're sitting in conditions that are only 20% go, and that makes sense because look at those sheets of rain. You can see the curtain of rain coming down around around the launch pad. So I'm glad we're out there right now, but I'm not. It's not looking. Whoa, that bird is like hovering in the middle of the screen. Did that bird just fly backwards past the camera?
It did because a wind gust caught it. It's still just letting itself be blown down the river. Actually,
that was a good indication of how windy it is out there. The bird actually flies backwards.
Hey, if the biological birds are having trouble with the wind, maybe this doesn't bode well for the mechanical birds sitting on the pad.
Oh, no kidding. But again,
anyway, look at that rain complex moving by us right now, and look at what's coming at us right now too. Like you can see how we've gone down in
Yeah. I'm
Just
actually
in our forecast.
Go ahead.
And just a reminder, the launch window for today is not a normal continuous launch window that lasts for a set amount of time. They have 4 launch opportunities according to the hazard zones that were put out, and those are at 12:24 UTC, or 8:24 Eastern, and we believe these are 10-minute blocks. There's a 10-minute block at 8:24 Eastern, 9:15 Eastern, 10:06 Eastern, and 10:53 Eastern, according to the hazard zones that were put out. But it is possible that these are not exactly the correct times. Sometimes in national security launches, they will intentionally put out slightly off data. They don't want to reveal exactly what's happening, but there are only a couple of launch opportunities within this launch window. If the weather is great at a time, it may not be a time that they are able to launch in. So we'll see what happens.
Right. Ah, it looks even hazier out there right now. It is
It's getting
so
hard to
windy.
see the rocket.
Yeah, it is. God. But again, y'all, put some love into chat for Chris Gebhardt, who's standing out in these conditions, operating that camera. I'm back in a nice studio right now. Like I mean, I have pants on, and that's a good thing for me. But Chris is out there on the ITL Causeway in the wind. I hope he has a plan to get all of the live streaming gear into a vehicle or someplace undercover if it starts to rain on him. I hope, right, Chris? Is that a thing? Okay, Chris is working on some other stuff, it looks like. But it is definitely rough conditions out there right now, and I can tell you what it's like whenever you go out and you try to cover something like this. That is a tough place to get a live stream going, and massive thanks for Chris being out there doing it. I don't know, Michael, were we expecting Chris to drop there, or maybe we?
I don't think so.
Okay, we might have.
Might have been a loss.
Yeah, that's okay.
But so a couple people in chat are asking what the status of the launch is and if it's been scrubbed. No, it has not been scrubbed. They are still hoping to launch today, but weather is deteriorating quickly. And obviously, the odds of a launch are not looking great. Weather is currently 80% no go. So only a 20% chance that weather will be favorable for launch during today's launch window.
Yeah. Yeah, but we'll be out there as long as we should be out there until we get some official word on exactly what's happening. I mean, if they come back and they say, yes, we are 100% scrubbed for today, pack it up and come on back. But for now, we're going to stand by and see what they're doing. And you can see the vehicle is venting. You see significant venting. I mean, look at the wind blowing that would be LOX venting out of the center of the rocket there. Just look at how windy it is over there on the pad. So not surprising that they're in tough conditions out there today. What does Tori always say? Tori says, I'd rather be on the ground wishing I was flying than flying wishing I was on the ground. So they definitely will not try to put this bird in the air if it's not safe to do so.
And Das, I'm back if my mic is live.
Okay, we got you. You are live right now. We hear you.
Yep.
Okay, cool. So, sorry, I had to protect you guys bags that you did because it started raining.
Gotcha.
And sorry, one just quick update again on the launch windows. ULA just put out what the launch windows actually are. So we have official information rather than the hazard zones, which are often incorrect. It is 8:24 to 8:34 Eastern. That's the first block. And the second block is 10:13 to 10:23 Eastern. So only 2 blocks of 10 minutes to launch today. And again, weather is 80% no go.
Gotcha. And that comes, I mean, that's 2 hours after the first one. It's like the beginning of and then the end of the 2 hour. It's not even really a 2 hour window, I guess, right?
Yeah, more like 2 10-minute blocks.
Yeah.
But...
Yeah, and I mean, very soon here, like within the next 4 to 5 minutes, they will have to be doing their poll to come out of the T-minus 4 minute hold and launch within the 8:24 window here within just a few minutes. And that obviously is, I mean, stranger things have happened, but I'm gonna go out on a limb here and say that ain't gonna happen.
Yeah.
So we're most likely looking at the 1013 window now, but not official. We'll wait for ULA to confirm it. But I mean, just looking around, I don't see how it's gonna get better in the next 15 minutes.
And Chris, I've got some video from ULA real quick. I'm gonna put up. There
Yeah,
is
definitely.
the feed from ULA right now, and you can just see. Look at this. This camera that's in the picture-in-picture there, that's actually going to be on top of the VIF, where they actually integrate the Atlas V. And look at the wind blowing this camera. This is the official United Launch Alliance camera that's literally bolted to the. Well, thanks for taking it away. That's bolted to the top of the VIF over there, and even it is shaking. So definitely not good conditions out there. Chris, go ahead.
Yeah, there's this. This is part of the this is part of the process. It's honestly kind of part of the fun of being in this industry, right? Where you get to these moments where the rocket might be ready, but the weather isn't, right? It injects a cool level of uncertainty and excitement into the whole process as you're waiting to see, like, I don't know, are we going to beat the weather? Are we going to be able to do it? So, the weather is all part of the rocket launch and space experience. And I know a lot of people get discouraged when we scrub because of weather or weather isn't looking good, but it's all part of the process. All part of the process. But we do have a good question here from Billy Leedy, and apologies if this was asked before or answered before. Thanks so much for the super chat, the $5 super chat there. We really appreciate it. And you asked a question too, Billy, about any particular reason for changing launch vehicle of the X-37B. I'm assuming that that is in relation to the fact that that this is the 6th mission of the X-37B. The 5th mission, the prior one to this, launched on a Falcon 9 rocket. But all of the first 4, in fact, 5 of the 6 have launched on the Atlas V. So it's not really changing launch vehicles so much as they went back to the original one that they did, since they have 2 vehicles that are certified to fly these missions. Aside from that, aside from the Air Force chose Atlas V for this one, and that Atlas V has launched 4 of the 6, has launched 4 of the 5 missions to date. With this one, it'll be 5 of the 6. We don't know why Atlas V was chosen over Falcon 9 for this particular mission. It could be a variety of factors, including something potentially to do with that new service module that's on it. We just don't know. But it's not like they've been launching all the time on one rocket and then all of a sudden switch to Atlas. Atlas actually is the vehicle they've launched the most on.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry to cut you off.
Yep.
There is an issue not related to weather being worked. I am trying to figure out what it is. I kind of missed it because I have too many audio feeds going in my ear at once. But when I figure out what it was, I will report back. But there appears to be an alarm of some sort, which would be a technical problem being out of bounds. So I'll report back once I figure out what that is.
Gotcha. So basically, in addition to the weather being crappy and 80% no-go odds, there's now a technical issue being worked on the Atlas, which at that point almost 100% precludes the 8:24 window.
Yeah. I mean, that's 14 minutes from now, so.
Yeah, at this point, and if they've got a problem that they're just now having to stop to go look at in addition to the weather, that doesn't bode well for our first 10-minute window. So, hooray! It looks like I'll be hanging out on the causeway till at least 10:13.
So is that the plan, Chris? Like, if something, I mean,
That's
if
the
they
plan.
don't get to 1024, you're gonna stay on the causeway for 2 hours?
We don't leave. We can't leave.
Leave.
Because we are technically guests of a military installation.
Right.
So we are under escort. So we are escorted out to the launch viewing site. We understand what the window is, and we understand that we might be here for the duration. So
what is our plan here? If we hear from United Launch Alliance that the 824 window is no go, are we going to keep the stream live, or what is our plan?
well, it's a good question. I mean, I don't have access to this kind of information. Like, how many people are watching?
Oh, let's see here. Over on YouTube, there's about 3,000 people, and there's about 500 on Twitch.
Yeah, I mean, as long as we've got questions, as long as we've got things to fill, I don't think there's a problem being live that long. I mean, if we do end up in it, if we do as we expect, end up in the extended hold to the second 10-minute window, which opens at 10:13 Eastern, 14:13 UTC. I mean, yeah, we
Yeah.
could stay live. We can talk about Starship. We can talk about other things aside from this mission. We can sort of just turn it into a general Q&A if we wanted to.
Well, I mean, we could
Um,
definitely do that. I know that the weather down at Boca Chica is rough, but you know me, I could spool up a feed from Boca Chica if Mary is out and about. So we
well,
have all sorts of tools.
exactly, but the thing that I do want to ask, because this is something that we do have to consider for all of you watching, something we have to consider isn't just, oh, wouldn't it be cool to remain live for 2 extra hours? A bunch, like two of us on this stream are also doing the NSF live show later today.
Yeah.
We're also needing to potentially be up at 2 a.m. this morning for multiple hours to cover the Starlink launch. And there's a potential stream for Starship doing something today.
Yep.
So there's also the personnel power and fatigue element of this as well. So Dawson, Michael, you tell me if it's more efficient for you guys to just throw up the be right back screen and we'll take a break and come back if we get into this extended hold.
Yeah, we can definitely let's see what we get here in another just over 10 minutes, and then we can make the call. I have a feeling that we're not going anywhere at 8:24, so I'm just sort of thinking ahead here, you know.
10 minutes from now? No, I
Yeah.
don't think we're heading. I don't think we're headed out. Ironically, there's a hole in the clouds.
Ironically, there's a
Oh,
hole in the clouds.
I kid you not. I'll show it to you. Hang on. Let me get the bag off the camera here.
The
Yeah,
bad.
literally right above the launch pad.
There's just a hole. There you go. There, we'll go now. Jeez. There's a there is an honest hole in the clouds right up there.
Not that it does us any good because they're working a technical issue,
Yeah.
but
I mean, I know Tori likes to tout those flexible trajectories that the Atlas is capable of, adjusting for weather and stuff like that. But I don't know if he can aim for that hole in the cloud.
well, it would be a very interesting retrograde launch back over the vehicle assembly building of the Kennedy Space Center and then a hook out over the Atlantic. I don't think they're going to do that.
I don't think they're gonna do that. That's not a thing.
Okay. Back to chat real quick. Chris Crow, $5. You. Thanks so much for the super chat there. You wanted to know, is there any chance where there would be two launch providers launching on the same day, i.e., one launches at 5 a.m. and one launches at 6 p.m.? Well, the answer to that is yes, because you're looking at the two that are going to do it if they have a chance of it. It might not technically be the same calendar day, but Atlas and Falcon are scheduled to launch 19 and a half hours from one another. So that's within the same 24-hour period. So not only is it entirely possible for two rockets to launch on the same day out of the Cape, but we're about to attempt it this weekend. Again, if Atlas does scrub today because of its abysmal 80% no-go weather forecast and the technical issue that they're working now, Atlas would have priority tomorrow on Sunday over Falcon 9. If what caused the scrub is something like weather, where you just come back, you just detank the vehicle, come back in tomorrow and do it all over again. Or if the technical issue ends up getting them, how quickly they can fix that issue and come back in. But Atlas would have priority, and then Falcon 9 would slip to Monday. But yeah, what is fascinating about this though is a couple of years ago, the 40 and even a few months ago, the 45th was saying that about 24 hours was as close as they could get if they were two rockets from different providers, like a SpaceX rocket and an Atlas, and a ULA rocket like we have today, because the Atlas has a manual flight termination system and the Falcon 9 has a automatic flight termination system. That's what allows them to go so quickly back to back from one another. But also a huge thing with this is how the 45th Space Wing has assembled the teams for missions. When they know missions are coming up well in advance, they can juggle around personnel. So the launch team supporting
Sorry to interrupt, Chris. We have an update on the
Yep,
technical issue. It was some sort of measurement issue that they are waiving, so that is not something that will prohibit launch.
Gotcha.
Cool. So no technical issue. We
One of
are
those sensor
technically at this
things.
point 8 minutes away from the opening of our launch window, which means we're just about half a minute, 30 seconds away from the go no go poll, which I don't think is going to happen, or if it happens, it's not going to be positive.
Yeah, and
But
I've got
we'll
a
wait.
I've got a feed from Mission Control right now for
Yeah.
the Atlas, the ASOC this would be, and they actually have the weather up on their big screen at the ASOC tracking all of the rain, and you can see on their weather that it's coming through. This looks like a go no go poll though.
Oh, they might be. They might be. They might just go through it to verify.
Here they go.
the
They
yeah.
are polling right now.
Yeah,
They're
they're
polling.
polling right now.
Pneumatics, propulsion systems, flight control, and
Okay.
propellant.
So far, everything is go.
Let's listen in
I
as
can use their
Dylan
stream
Rice
audio, Michael.
performs the final polling of the launch team.
So the camera in the background there, that's actually their backup operations center in Denver, if I'm not mistaken. This is the ASOC, and then that
Yes,
other
that
feed is like their other operations center in
Status check to proceed.
Centennial, wherever that is.
Atlas.
Yeah, that was Centennial, that other
Yep.
camera.
Go. Hydraulics.
Well, Michael, I'm
Pneumatic.
assuming the poll
Go.
resulted in a no-go
Hello,
condition
Go.
because
Going
of
through the
weather.
poll right now,
Correct.
Chris.
Go.
Okay.
Sensor systems.
Yeah, sorry you
propulsion.
can't hear it.
Go. Pneumatic.
Go.
LO2.
Go.
LH2. LH2. Go. Pass gas.
Go.
Electrical system. Airborne.
Go.
No go for rain weather. It's going to be the call.
Go.
Probably
All right,
preempting
that's
that because DOS is
Go.
playing off of the
Flight
ULA stream.
Yes,
But
Go.
yes, let it go.
apologies for the spoiler.
Go.
I just realized
Yeah.
that.
Go. Go. Umbilical. Go. ECS. Go. Red line monitor. Go. Quality.
Go.
Op safety management.
Go.
ULA safety officer.
Go.
Vehicle system engineer.
Go.
Anomaly.
Go.
Range coordinator.
No go for range weather LCCs.
Roger. LD.
Yeah, so there you just heard
Yeah.
that range call. The range is no go for weather as expected, and that means they are likely not going to be able to proceed with the countdown
Okay, on
in
that one
less
with
than a
the
minute now,
Nigeria,
unless
LC
something
switch
rapidly
will be in.
changes. So we expect them to have to revert to that second launch opportunity, which opens at 10:13 Eastern Time.
Yeah.
Yeah, so onward to 10:13 we go, the second of the 10-minute launch windows today. Das, for your general FYI, I am watching a rain shower off the coast that if it does push into this location, I'll need to throw the camera in the car to protect the equipment.
Understood. Yeah, completely understood.
So we
asking
might
about
have a
that earlier.
very quick need to rely on ULA feed switch.
Yeah, that is fine. If you need to shut that down, if it starts to get you over there, you just let us know and we'll take it from here.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah. So again, y'all, just a quick recap here. We're standing by. This is the launch with.
Okay, we have an update. We have an
Go ahead,
update.
go
Sorry
ahead.
to interrupt. They are now going for the end of the first 10-minute window, which will be at 12:34 UTC or 8:34 Eastern.
Gotcha. So
There's a
34?
huge rain complex moving toward us.
I have a feeling.
No, I'm not saying that to be funny. I'm saying that to like, in a lot of ways, help people on our stream prepare for what's coming.
Yeah.
I don't know when they're seeing the fact that they want to target it. I don't know. That could be like a desperate, like, we don't want to give up the window just in case. But I don't know what they're seeing on radar that would indicate that might be a reality.
I think it's just
basically.
part of their normal process, right? I mean, in other situations, there may be some other reason that they'd target a different part of the window. So I think that they may have a pretty good indication that this is not going, but they're sort of going through this as a rehearsal, right? You have the opportunity, the equipment is there, the people are there, so I don't see why they wouldn't keep sitting and waiting.
Well, it could be. It's just. It could be. I don't know. The only reason I wonder if they're seeing something that makes them think it might be a possibility is because we don't normally see that, right? Like, we see companies do what they did today, where even if the odds are against you, you fuel just in case. But when we're talking about a very short window like this, you know, and the top of the 10-minute window is so bad that it's a clear no-go violation. You've been in no-go violations for hours at this point. I don't see what they're saying that's
Yeah.
going to change in 10 minutes. So
Yeah.
it's strange that they wouldn't just bypass this one and go to the next one, is what I'm trying to say. Yep.
And I was explaining over here, saying that the window is weird today, right? It's not a 2 hour window. It's two 10-minute windows that are 2 hours apart. So a lot of times we're like,
Yes.
oh, this can launch anytime between 8 a.m. and 10 a.m., right? But today it's not like that. They either launch in this first 10-minute window that we're just about in, another 2 minutes, or they launch in about 2 hours from now in that 10, what was it, Chris? 10:13, 10:14 window?
10:13 is the
10:13.
opening of the window. Yeah,
Gotcha.
10:13 Eastern, 14:13 UTC is
Gotcha.
our next 10-minute window.
All right.
Now, of note, if they are able to launch in the 10:13 window here, that 2.5 hour delay does not mess up SpaceX's ability to launch tomorrow.
Right.
Let's just get that question out of the way since I know it's coming. At some point, Falcon 9 is still good for tomorrow if Atlas launches in its 10-minute window that opens at 10:13. Yeah, and of course, if Atlas scrubs, then Falcon 9 will delay to Monday, and Atlas will get a second opportunity tomorrow, assuming that we scrub for weather and not.
Right. Gotcha. But we are going to continue hanging out here until we get official word on what they're doing. So.
It's starting to drizzle, DOS, just FYI.
Okay.
Nothing major that makes me have to run again, but it is starting to drizzle.
Okay. How's the solo? The solos don't love water. Ask me.
Then let me move it. Hang on.
So we're gonna do this real quick, y'all. We'll cut over to, let's see here. Oh yeah, wow. I've actually got to do this way. Just stand by. We'll just make this full screen while Chris works with the camera there. There we go. Look at it. It's just editing it on the fly in OBS. And Chris, I am not looking at your feed now, so let me know what you're doing. Are you putting it in the car or?
No. I'm just blocking. I'm using the card to block from the solo.
Gotcha. Tell me when you're stable again.
Hold on. Hang on.
Yep, no worries. I got us on the ULA feed for now. ULA feed with air quotes. There was some real-time editing involved with that. And you can hear Christy moving things around over there, y'all. Some rain was starting to come through, and that sounds like plastic bags and stuff, which I know that the Solo appreciates because it doesn't like to get too wet.
Yes, well, to be fair, neither does the camera.
Yeah, neither does the camera. Yeah.
All right, I've got things more or less protected, but if it gets worse or the rain increases, I will have to throw the whole thing in the car just to protect
Yeah,
it.
gotcha. And Chris, that's your call completely. Like on 2 seconds notice, you just let me know, and you can do what you need to. All right.
Okay, that sounds good. But we should be good for right now.
Okay, let me hop back to it in my super professional cut here. Look at that, it's animated. See, I did that myself. There we go. We'll do a little picture in picture like that. Just editing OBS on the fly.
Okay, well, that should be good on my end in order to stream up.
Cool. There we go. See, that's much better when we do it this way. got quiet all of a sudden. What happened? It's like, is Chris okay? It got quiet.
Sorry. I'm still reconfiguring stuff on
No,
mine. I'm not
no,
ready to
we just
talk or anything.
Chris, suddenly we didn't hear the wind noise anymore. And I'm like, is
I
Chris okay? There's no more wind noise.
Oh, okay. I can barely hear you now, Das, for some reason.
1, 2, can you hear me now? Is that any better?
Very slightly.
Yeah, it sounds like like when you moved, it sounds like the wind has gotten worse. I think the car is like funneling the wind directly at your microphone now or something.
Well, no, the wind has increased.
Oh, it did? It was the wind. Okay.
Yeah, no, the wind has increased. Yeah.
It wasn't the aerodynamics of the Tesla that was pushing
No,
it
but
around.
the aerodynamics of the Tesla. Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome.
Again, y'all, Chris G is out there. You can tell that it's windy. You can tell that the weather is really rough. So we're playing this by ear right now. But they are saying they're trying to get in this window. Wow, that wind. They're trying the end of the window
Okay.
here. So
We have an update.
go ahead.
New launch time of 10:13 Eastern, which means they have moved to the second launch opportunity today.
Well, there you go. 10:13 Eastern. Wow. So I'm wondering if we have an official launch time that's been pushed back a little bit. And Chris, I'm going to turn your wind noise down just a little bit here. Tell us when you type in chat.
I can't. Das, I can barely hear you, man.
Okay. We'll type in chat. I'm going to turn down his microphone for now, and I'll say, Chris, let us know. All right, Chris. Mic is off. Wind is too bad right now. Type in chat when you're ready. There we go. I'm just going to text Chris that in Discord real quick. But as you can hear, we just got confirmation that the United Launch Alliance launch of the Atlas 501 is going to be pushing to the second window opportunity here. There were two different windows, two 10-minute windows, one early at 8:24 to 8:34, and then one later starting at 10:13. And due to these, I'm going to say weather conditions, you can see down there at the Cape off the ULA camera here that it is, whoa, that's not the ULA camera. Hi there, suddenly. You can see that the weather out there is not fantastic, and so they are pushing that back. That is another just under 2 hours from now. Just under 2 hours from now. So we're sort of thinking, and again, Chris, your wind noise was so bad I did mute your microphone. So if you're talking, we cannot hear you right now. But we're going to go ahead and make a plan and figure out, are we going to go ahead and stay live, or are we going to switch back over? Did we get... Okay, all right, there we go. Back to this camera again over here on this feed. But let's chat with our studio folks here. Again, this is Chris Gebhardt, and honestly, if it's raining, we don't want Chris to be sitting out there with the gear and worrying about that. So our best plan may very well be to have that camera secured and shut that down until the weather passes, and then bring it back online for the next window here. Michael, did we hear? I don't know if you're listening to the United Launch Alliance stream. Are you listening to the ULA stream?
No, but I imagine they will keep their pad cameras on if that's what you're gonna ask.
Yeah, that
So
was my question.
Yeah, so we could just show the ULA feed for now.
Yeah, that might be what we're doing. But give us just 1 second here, y'all. I'm going to go ahead and turn off the audio for just a second. We're going to have a little bit of a discussion here and try to figure out what our plan is going to be. So don't go anywhere. We are just going to turn off some audio, and we will be right back. All right, folks, we were having a little bit of a chat there in the background, and look at this. Is this a drone that's up? I mean, this
No,
looks like, is it a
it's moving
helicopter?
though.
It is moving.
It's not the VAB because it was pretty low a second ago. Now it's
Yeah.
a lot higher.
This has to be something that's airborne, don't you think?
Yeah, it looks like it's moving too. Is it right?
Yeah, it definitely looks like it's moving. So I don't know about a drone or not, but this is actually a pretty cool shot that they've got going on here. But here is our plan, folks. We are actually securing right now Chris's equipment. The weather is deteriorating rapidly out there, so he's going to go ahead and put all that equipment in his vehicle. He has to remain on the ITL causeway, so he can't. Oh, hi there. KSC TV HD. We just got some bars there. There we go. Switches to another camera. But Chris is going to secure that equipment in the car, and we are going to check back with Chris in just a minute here. We're going to see when he's in the car, can we continue to do Q&A? He's got to stay out there one way or the other, right? Honestly, if we shut down the stream, I'm going to take a nap because I was up early this morning. But we're just standing by for Chris to get the equipment secured in the vehicle so that as this weather comes through, we don't get a bunch of water in our broadcast gear, cameras, or anything like that. And I believe, Michael, we don't have confirmation, but we think that ULA is probably going to keep their cameras online. So
Yeah, that's
we
usually
may,
what they do. So
yeah,
yeah.
we may do some Q&A with Chris, but we're just waiting for Chris to get secured.
And another update: the
Yep.
electric field mile rule that governs the electrical potential in the air is the third weather rule to be no-go.
Wow.
So the weather has continued to get worse.
Jeez. So
That-
electrical potential, that sounds like a sort of lightning thing, doesn't it?
Yeah, that probably means if the rocket launches, there's a high risk that or a high enough risk that it could trigger lightning that they don't want to launch.
Yeah. God. Now, rockets have been struck by lightning when they're launching before. Isn't that the old SEE to aux thing?
Yes,
Yeah.
Apollo 12. So it
So
can happen,
that is.
but
Go ahead.
something you try to avoid. And
Yeah, something you try to avoid.
A Soyuz was struck by lightning last year, I believe. So
Oh, wow.
it does happen.
So I'm not sure. You think those are waves out there? Do you see the white sort of caps?
Yeah, it looks like waves to me.
I think those are some waves out there. And this has to be a drone or a helicopter or something. I don't know what sort of drone they're fielding that's happy in this wind, but whatever this camera is looks like it's moving right now. So, anyways, we do appreciate everybody hanging out with us while we do this. Again, Chris Gebhardt is out there. He is securing all the equipment. In order to secure the equipment, he has to shut down the broadcast and stuff like that. So we are going to be on this. Oh, and there's actually a ticker on the ULA feed saying live commentary will resume at 10:03 Eastern. So they're going to keep their cameras online, but they're going to take their commentary offline. We don't use that commentary anyways, I guess. So we are waiting for Chris to get that equipment secured so that we can see what our plan is going to be. But we're going to hang out until we know what's going on. Again, the launch has officially been pushed to the second window coming up in just about an hour and a half at this point, just over an hour and a half. So Chris is in the vehicle. Let's see if we can bring his audio back online and see what he's up to. Chris, how's it going?
Hey, it is good. I barely managed to get in the vehicle before it started pouring.
Perfect timing then. I appreciate you getting all the equipment in the vehicle. Also, there's no more wind noise, which is nice.
Well, I would hope there isn't in my car.
Yes.
Something's gone terribly awry if there is.
So what do we want to do here, Chris? We know that we have just over an hour and a half. We could certainly continue to do Q&A, so if people had questions for us, we could answer some questions. We still have the video feed from United Launch Alliance up, so you can see the venting happening and that the wind and the rain. There's actually some water on the ULA camera there. But what's your feel? Do we want to try and talk for another hour and a half here, or do we want to shut it down?
So I would with doing Q&A, but there just doesn't seem to be a lot of Q&A.
I mean, we had 1 and 2 super chat questions we could answer, but that's about it.
Yeah, let's grab those real quick.
Did I miss some of the super chat questions?
Or did we get Stevens? You might have. It was about the service module.
Yes. So for Steven, then the $5, yeah. For the service module, yeah. So we talked about this a bit earlier in the stream, and uh, all we really know is that there is a service module. We don't really know what it particularly looks like. We know it's going to enable them to do and conduct more experiments, more stuff on orbit. But whether that means it's carrying some of the things they're going to test, or it just carries enough extra propellant to let the vehicle stay up longer so it can test more things, we don't know. But we know there's a service module. But this is one of the weird elements of this flight and its semi-classified nature, even though we know what it is.
And it sounds like we have lost.
And we know it's long. Good question for you, but we really just don't know what this service is really supposed to.
Whoa.
Yeah.
That is
Chris
interesting
Reeves.
behavior.
What?
Did it just replayed your audio or something?
Really?
Yeah, it literally.
I'm good on repeat too.
Yeah, I don't know. Anyways, that was a weird hiccup there for a second. But Chris, you were saying service module.
Yes. So unfortunately, we just don't know what it does. On this one, we know service modules generally carry power systems, propellant, oxygen. You know, if it's a crew flight. But yeah, we really don't know what this one is
Yeah, gotcha. I know.
completely capable of doing.
On the United Launch Alliance animation earlier, they had like a very generic service module. Like it was just a tank on the back of it with no details, no anything on it. So
Yes, yeah. Well, and this is what normally happens, right, with DoD flights and things like that. Is United Launch Alliance has even had classified missions where they would do the animation, they would show payload fairing separation. It would just be this really generic satellite, like a placeholder.
yeah.
Just kind of showing like, yep, there's something there, but we're not showing you what it is.
Yeah, a couple people in chat are wondering how many X-37Bs there are. There are two. This is believed to be the first of the two vehicles which is flying again today. This will be its third total flight. The previous two flights of X-37B were made by the second vehicle. So over the last 4 years or so, this vehicle has been undergoing upgrades, and one of those is believed to be the ability to support a service module. X-37Bs in the past have used their own onboard propulsion systems to fly without a service module. They also have solar panels and everything they need on board the spacecraft itself. So the service module, like Chris just said, we don't know what it does, but it is one of the upgrades that this X-37B, first X-37B spacecraft has gotten. We're not sure if the second X-37B will also gain the service module capability.
Gotcha.
Oh, what's great is it's raining to the point where I can't see the rocket on the pad anymore.
It's a good thing you got in the car.
It is. Well, thankfully the rain right now is between me and the pad, but yeah, I just look back, I can't see it. Like
Well, we appreciate you being out there, Chris, and getting the live video and doing the commentary with us. There was another question.
Oh, it's my pleasure as always. I love this. Yes.
Excellent. There was another question that came from Twitch chat over on my side, asking how long can this launch stay on the pad before it starts to affect the next Atlas launch? What is the next Atlas launch?
Yes. This is an excellent question. So the next Atlas mission is the one that will launch on July 17th to take the Perseverance rover to Mars.
Gotcha.
For NASA. And back in December, when we were going through all the Starliner pre-flight events and everything, the question was asked, or rather the statement was made by United Launch Alliance and Boeing that if the orbital flight test had gone perfectly in December, that the crew flight test of Starliner could happen in April or May, and that there was, quote, room in the manifest, but they have to turn over the pad for the July Mars mission by the end of May.
Okay.
Now, when I talked with United Launch Alliance's Tony Talakachi, director of like launch integration operations and launch operations for United Launch Alliance, a week ago today, I asked him that same question, and he wouldn't give a precise date.
Okay.
All he would say is that they have good opportunities to get this mission off the ground. They actually brought this mission's launch forward by 4 days. It was originally the 20th of May, and they brought it forward to the 16th to give themselves extra time, an extra cushion to get off the ground so that they can still turn the pad over for Perseverance. And when I pressed him a little bit further on what is the specific day, all he would say is that there was quote, what was it? It was quote, substantial margin remaining, is how he put it.
Nice.
So they weren't, in other words, ULA didn't seem to think there was a danger of this mission impacting Perseverance, but they're aware of it.
Gotcha.
Because not only do they have to stack the Atlas with solids for Perseverance, they also have to haul it out to the launch pad, do a wet dress rehearsal, ferret out any issues with the rocket or the ground systems, roll back, mate Perseverance on top, do all of their data reviews, and then get back out to the pad. And they only have 14 days to launch.
Gotcha.
So
14
yeah.
days.
Yeah, and we just had a oh, go ahead, Chris. You're gonna say something?
Oh no, I'm good. Yep.
Okay. Fire makes me king. You sent a super chat asking, any guess on what Boca is doing with Hopper? I've been working on it a lot lately. And while this question is slightly off topic, I thought we would answer it because, speaking of Boca Chica, I will get to the Hopper point right now, but there's also supposed to be Starship testing this morning with a window for testing opening at 6 a.m. local time, which is 7 a.m. Eastern, which also happens to be about when we started today's stream. But, believe it or not, the weather in Boca Chica was very similar to what we are seeing right now with the Atlas, except there was lightning too. Boca Chica now seems to be clearing up a bit. We'll see what happens. But if we do have action in Boca Chica today, we will likely be bringing that to you live too. Mary is going to be down there as usual. And to get to your question about Hopper, it looks like they've installed some cameras on it, so I think they're just using it as basically a giant tripod, but it's not believed to be doing anything with testing itself. Like I don't think it's going to fly again and be used as a vertical test stand as they were once proposing. I think it's just basically a giant mount to put some extra equipment on at the pad.
Gotcha. And so that is one. We were actually chatting with Mary this morning as she was cooking breakfast, I think. And we were seeing if there was anything going on at Boca Chica to see if we were going to spool up 2 streams at the same time here, because we do have the capability to bring a live camera from Boca Chica at the same time we have Chris's live camera at the Cape. But the stars or whatever it is that needs to align, the weather, I guess, didn't align that way this morning to bring both together.
You know, it's funny you mentioned stars align and everything like that. When I got up at 3:30 this morning and got in the car to start coming down here, I was looking around and I was like, oh wow, like I can see the moon, I can see the constellations, I can see everything. This is great. Like it's not going to be a 60% no-go odd. Like
yeah. Welcome
boy,
to
was
Florida.
that wrong.
So again, y'all, we're just standing by for more updates. Was that an update I just talked over?
Oh no, I was gonna say thank you to Glenn for the new membership, and Brendan, we're glad you appreciate the stream.
Yeah, so our update here, y'all, the bird is on the pad right there. You see an Atlas 501. It's got that 5-meter fairing at the top. No SRBs today, so it didn't need any strap-on boosters. And it's got the single engine in the Centaur upper stage. It is raring to go, but the weather is not cooperating. The last update we got, it was an 80% chance of violation, an 80% chance of not going. United Launch Alliance pushed back from that first window. First window opened at 8:24. And the weather did not cooperate for that first window. They have another window coming up here, and that second window opens at 10:13, if I'm not mistaken. So that is still more than an hour away, almost an hour and a half away, just under an hour and a half away right now. and we are just sort of standing by, seeing what's going on.
Yeah. In good news, I can see the pad again.
I can see the pad again. Nice.
And there are holes, there are breaks in the weather, so, in and around Cape Canaveral, just looking around and scanning visually. So, this could also be something where, like, what we're really hoping for is that we just hit the hole in the clouds and in the weather perfectly.
Yep.
In the 10-13 chunk of time that we've got to launch here.
Right.
Coming up, that's just what we, it's one of those things where,
Catch up, Discord. Chris, we're losing you on the audio there.
The weather is just kind of gonna do what it's gonna do.
Yeah, Chris, we can't hear you right now.
Longer
the voice communications there was way lagged out, so we were losing you. Zoom does this. We're on Discord right now. Discord does this. Like, it seems like anytime there's a risk, like a sort of shaky telephone or a phone connection, I guess, data connection, these telecom softwares just sort of robot out. But we couldn't hear what you were saying there. It was like robot, like, well, I don't think so. Try to talk now. Let's see if it works.
So if you've got me,
yes, we do now. We're good.
Yeah. So, I know we've got things, and this is probably just a good thing for, like, our troubleshooting on the back end.
Yep.
I've got full bars and full LTE, so whatever dropouts were coming did not appear to be on my end.
Yeah, the bars on your cell phone don't give any indication of how good your data connection is. The problem. You can have full bars and still have no data connection. Yeah.
So that's basically just there for nothing.
That's the cell phone company just trying to fib to you, man. Now,
Well,
if you have no bars, you probably won't have a data connection, but full bars doesn't mean that you've got a solid data connection. There's all sorts of stuff that goes into it. Yeah. It's annoying, but...
Well, in some weather news, we're back down to only two conditions, which are no-go. The electrical field rule has returned to go status, so now it is just the cumulus cloud rule and ground winds, which are the no-go constraints.
Gotcha. So
yeah, it was interesting there. I was wondering if the field, not having those visuals up in front of me, I was wondering if the field mills had indicated electrical charge, because there was definitely when a thunderstorm is approaching and there's that feeling in the atmosphere, right, that an electrical storm is on its way. Like, it kind of started to feel that way here as the band from this system moved in. So yeah,
that was
that just goes to show you, right, sometimes weather violations crop up that aren't on the forecast.
Right.
Like lightning and electricity was not one of the things they were concerned about today, but it ended up being something that was red.
Yep. Do you think the 45th is still launching weather balloons? Don't they launch balloons to get, like, the upper level winds and stuff like that in advance of the launch?
They do indeed. There are prescribed times that weather balloons are launched. Those times can vary depending on what rocket it is and what kind of mission it is. But yes, weather balloons are always launched to get accurate real-time data on what the upper level winds are doing.
With the winds like this, I wonder where those balloons end up.
Oh, Tampa, the Gulf of Mexico today.
Do they wait? I mean, do they come down over
all the
land?
way across the state?
Yeah, I've never thought about that. But if you launch a weather balloon, it could come down somewhere on land, right?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Huh.
It's a balloon, yeah.
I wonder, did they get, like, recovered or something? Because they have sensor packages and stuff on them, right? Like,
they do have sensor packages. I know somewhere the weather balloons have been recovered, but I couldn't speak to, nor do I see Jim Williams anywhere who I could accost for an answer to this. Right here, I don't know how many they recover from the 45th.
Yeah.
Or if they even plan to recover them, and if they just blow back over there and they go get them, because they can. I don't know how it works
Do
actually.
they have like little locator beacons, like GPS signal on them or something, or do they're just
Actually,
gone?
this is a great question for chat. Is anyone who's watching? Does anyone know what they do with weather balloons? Like, do they recover them? When do they recover them? When do they not? When they come back down? Yeah.
I think it'd be a super interesting sort of video, live stream, virtual field trip, whatever you want to call it, to go and talk with the 45th about what they do for weather. Because the weather is so important for launches like this, and so much has to happen behind the scenes so that the launch provider, ULA, SpaceX, whoever, gets an accurate weather forecast. It'd be really interesting to chat with them about what they do.
Yes, so they've done some of these events before, where they've let us come in and watch them launch a weather balloon, and things like that. The thing that makes it difficult to do a virtual field trip for, when I was talking with Jim about this, is they're not in area. They don't launch them from areas that have great reception. And because of like when we have to be bussed in, and it was this whole thing, but it basically broke down to that. What I was told the last time they did a weather event here, which was ironically canceled because of weather. Yes, it was phenomenal. We were going to go out and watch them launch a weather balloon in February, and a massive cold front with a huge squall line came through that day. And needless to say, bringing the media to watch them launch a weather balloon in lightning was A, not safe, and B, the least of their worries that day.
The least of their worries, nice.
But no, it is, and they are very open to it. So hopefully they'll do something again where we could show you all like what does it look like when they launch a weather balloon? Where does it go? Because I know one thing is like they launched them from Patrick Air Force Base just south from here. And I mean, and their times are published. Like you can ask, when are you launching the weather balloons? It's not a classified thing. But you so rarely see them with the naked eye from the ground that when you actually do, on the rare event that you see them, maybe you see one weather balloon when you're covering a launch once every 2 years. And I mean, think of how much we launch now.
And
so
every
yeah,
launch
when
has
you
multiple
see them,
balloons.
it becomes. Yeah, it is. And but it's so cool because everyone turns into like a 5-year-old when we see them in the sky, and we're like, oh my god, a weather balloon, and everyone starts pointing and taking pictures. And well, there's literally like a multi-million-dollar rocket sitting on the launch pad being flown around taking pictures of a weather balloon.
And so somebody had just said, you mentioned the name Jim. Who is Jim?
Oh, great question. Jim is Jim Williams. He is the head of communications for the 45th Space Wing for the U.S. Air Force, soon to be U.S. Space Force.
Right.
And an absolutely terrific guy. Someone who will bend over backwards and do everything he can for the media and for us out here. We don't want Jim to go anywhere. Let's put it that way.
We don't want Jim to go anywhere. Nice. So, hey, another question came in from Powers over here. It says, if the X-37B has been declassified to some extent, do we know, is there any speculation on any classified spacecraft? What might they be capable of? That's an interesting question.
It is. So, admittedly, your audio cut out there. So, can you repeat the question for me?
Yeah, it was about the X-37B being declassified to some extent. I mean, we have pictures of it and stuff like that. Do we know if there's any speculation on what it may be carrying or what its capabilities are? We know that it's broken orbital records, right?
Oh my God, yeah, it's broken orbital records for launch and entry vehicles. Its last mission stayed up for 700 some odd days.
Wow.
And then returned to land here at the Kennedy Space Center on the old shuttle landing runway. It was funny when that last one actually landed. It passed an old space shuttle mock-up that the visitor center used to have here at Kennedy, and it freaked so many people out because they're like, "Why is there a space shuttle sitting there?
Why is there a space shuttle?"
Yeah,
somebody hit it with a shrink ray.
To the question, we the only real ability that we know
it has, or real abilities that we know it has, is the ability to stay on orbit for upwards of 2.5, 3 years.
Right.
It's solar powered, so its payload bay doors open when it gets to orbit. It pops out a solar panel, and it can remain power positive and happy in orbit for as long as it wants to,
Right.
from a power perspective, which really means the maneuvering fuel is the limiting factor
Right.
for it, because you always have to maintain enough propellant in the reaction control system thrusters to do orbit maneuvers, but to also maintain your nose up 40-degree attitude that space planes use when they come into the atmosphere to
Right.
create lift and S-curve maneuver their way to their landing sites. Because unlike capsules, which if they land a kilometer away from the center of the bullseye they're headed for, not a big deal. It's a capsule. It's under parachute. It plops down where it plops down.
Right.
But the X-37B has to hit a 3-mile long runway from a deorbit burn halfway around the world with no propulsion after that, and only gliding.
Automatically too. Like
automatically.
nobody's
The
piloting
same way
it.
the space shuttle. Exactly, the same way the space shuttles had to do it. You've got one shot with the X-37B to land it as a glider. So
Yeah.
you've got to get everything right. So you need to, keep enough propellant so that your thrusters are still working after the deorbit burn, but you're so high up that your aero surfaces don't work yet
Right.
on the plane.
Right.
So that appears to be its only limiting factor that we know of. In terms of what it can do, yeah, the Air Force has never said
Right.
what it actually takes up with it. We do know that it's meant to test potential future technologies for spaceflight, but that is the extent of what they have said about it.
Gotcha. Yeah, one of those. If I'm not mistaken, and I may be mistaken about this, is the X-37B the one that has its picture painted on the door, like the big building door somewhere at Cape Canaveral?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. The two X-37Bs are processed for flight
Right.
in the former space shuttle processing hangars at the Kennedy Space Center. So the huge reason they wanted to start landing them here and consolidating operations here was just like the shuttle. They landed them out in the middle of the desert in California at first, just to prove that they could hit the runway reliably before coming in over populated areas of Florida attempting to do that.
Right.
But then they wanted to consolidate everything here so that they could land them here, refurbish them here, encapsulate them here, and take them a couple miles down the road and stack them on top of a rocket.
Yeah. Gosh, I remember I went to a NASA social or something like that like 5 years ago, and we were going around the VAB and stuff like the awesome things you get to do when you're a NASA social and you've never done that sort of thing, right? And we're going around the VAB, and we looked over, and there's a huge blue door, and it says like home of the X-37B or something like home of the X-37.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we're like, oh, what's that? And everybody's like, we can't talk about that.
We can't talk about that.
It was just curious because it's this classified thing, but they painted it on a door really big, so...
Well, that's what I mean. Like, so much of this program, it's kind of like, I get why it's classified, obviously.
Sure.
Right. But it is a new kind of classification, because usually when something is classified, all we know is there's something in the payload fairing. It might be looking back at us.
Yeah, it might be looking back at us.
But we have no idea what it looks like. Like,
Right.
literally no idea. And that's very weird that they would not just, that there aren't just pictures of it like from when it lands, which you can't hide that. But that they actually take pictures and put them out on social media, the Space Force and the Air Force, and they're just like, look at this thing that we don't actually want you to look at, but we're going to show you.
Yeah, we're going to show you this anyways.
What is cool about the X-37B, it does go back to the question about its capabilities.
Right.
It is one.
Chris, hang on, sorry.
Oh, yeah, what's going on?
There is ice blowing off the side of the Atlas V. So
wow.
A wind gust must have hit the Atlas V, and there were literally chunks of ice flying off the side of it, crashing down to the ground. There's actually a spot on the, here. I'll see if I can circle it real quick. There's a spot.
It's still really windy here. It doesn't surprise me. But that's incredible. That wind just blew ice off the rocket.
Yeah, no, it did. That's exactly what just happened. Sorry about the Windows noise there, y'all. But there's actually a clean spot on the side of the rocket where the ice just blew off the side.
I'm glad you're screen capping that because I can't wait to see it.
Yeah,
Yeah, so for those of you listening to this, Doss and Michael are the ones who can see everything. I'm actually in my car, ridiculously because of how we have to park, with my back to the rocket right now.
you can't see
Yes,
anything about
like
it.
so I don't have the visuals that they do. So I'm relying on them to tell me what they're seeing, like ice being blown off the side of the rocket. Yeah.
Look, more ice just blew off the side again. Wow.
Yeah. What is interesting, because this helps give you, all of you who are watching, a sense of what it's like to be here in person, right? Being here in person when they actually lift off is great because you can feel them, you can hear them, you can get that very visceral experience of what it's like to be very close to a rocket when it leaves the planet. But you don't get to see all the cool up close camera views that you guys get to see.
Right.
Yeah, so like all this cool stuff, all the launch broadcasts, we never get to see it as media. So like usually the first thing I do when I get home from one of these launches is go watch the ULA or SpaceX webcast, like
to see what you missed, right?
Everything you guys got to see, because I didn't.
Yep.
Down here, yeah.
That's when you're out there, like back when I did streams, right, and it was just me doing my Twitch stream at the Cape by myself, right, all by my lonesome. It was always almost sort of what's the right way to say it, like a letdown, because T-1, okay, here we go, the launch. All right, I see the first part of the launch, and then you can't see it anymore. and when you're in the field, there's still the webcast going, and there's still on camera, onboard rocket video, and all this sort of stuff. But you're there, and it's like, I guess I got to pack up because I can't see anything anymore. So
yeah, it really is. And I mean, like sometimes the calculus of where you go, like when for NASA missions, if NASA offers more than one viewing location, like top of the VAB or ITL Causeway instead of the press site, right?
Yeah.
Most of the time when they offer that, I opt to stay at the press site because I know they won't force me to leave. But if I go to the ITL Causeway with a bunch of photographers who 2 minutes into flight, they can't take any more pictures, they all want to get back on the bus and go home. And I'm standing there going, no, I can't leave for another 15 minutes.
Right.
And sometimes that has bit me because NASA public affairs are like, well, everyone else is ready to go. We're not waiting for you. Get back on the bus.
Yeah, I was the last person on. I was that guy so many times because the live stream would keep going and everybody else, they're like, oh, I took my pictures. I can pack up my camera and get on the bus. And we're like, where's the mission still going? We're still talking about what's going. So I have been that guy on the NASA bus so many times.
And I've got one thing to add to that, but I think I heard Michael starting to chime in with an update, so I want to pause for that.
This is just totally unrelated, but the chat is talking about it a lot. So if you are watching and wondering why the chat keeps talking about a fire near SpaceX's launch complex, not at SpaceX's launch complex, near SpaceX's launch complex, there is a large residential fire. It appears. Looks like maybe an apartment building or something, so hopefully everybody's okay. But there is a large fire across the water from SpaceX's launch complex. So if you see people talking about a fire in chat, that is what they're talking about.
Yeah, and again, I was just confirming in the back channel, that's over at South Padre Island, which is nowhere near Boca Chica. That's way across the bay.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
The land is flat. So some of the local web cameras are showing it from near the SpaceX. You can see it from the SpaceX complex.
Yeah.
But again, it has nothing to do with SpaceX. It's far away, like Bob said.
Thanks, Mike.
You guys started talking about a fire near a SpaceX launch complex, and I turned around and I'm like, where?
Where?
Like, I'm looking at it. Like, there's no fire. But Boca Chica, that makes more sense.
Yeah, that's South Padre Island. So it's at the city of South Padre Island over there.
I was like, man, if we've got a fire on base now, like, we're done.
No.
But yes, there was something I wanted to add to that about our conversation, Doss, about being the last person out there, right? When you're streaming and you're with a bunch of photographers, right? Yep. And just how different the jobs are from the media. And one thing about like locations like this, where we are today, where we're on the ITL Causeway and all of us are together, is like, us working out with public affairs for the 45th saying, hey, we might not be ready to jump in the car and leave 10 minutes after launch because we've got a live stream, right? And they'll work with us and leave an escort out here with us if we need that.
Right.
But another thing that and the reason I brought this up is because when Starlinks used to take an hour from launch until deployment, right?
Right.
That first time that happened, everyone wanted to leave the ITL causeway. And I was sitting there going, no. Like our live stream goes until deployment. No.
Yeah,
Like
right.
and what worked in our favor that time was SpaceX had sent out the media accreditation and specifically said we will not leave the ITL causeway until payload deployment.
Wow, nice.
So that worked in my advantage and our advantage for NSF. And then they started doing a staggered thing where, like, if you want to leave, you can, we'll escort one group out
Right.
early
Gotcha.
and the other group has to stay. Because the more that like you and what you've helped me start to do and the site start to do with these live streams is sometimes you've got those really radical different timelines that people are on for their projects.
Absolutely. So it also, it really helps, I think, to have somebody back in the studio too, right? So we don't have to shut down our webcast just because you need to move around. I'm a huge fan of cutting between cameras, and it's like, oh, hey, we're here live in the studio right now, and that's the feed in the background that's not up. And then we have Chris G out at the Cape, and that's the feed that's not up. But then here's the United Launch Alliance feed, and then here's a feed from Boca Chica, and here's one from Wallops. Like I'm a fan of doing that. So.
Yeah. Well, no, I mean, and it's very cool when we can do it like that. I mean, there is a part of me that's like kind of disappointed that Starship isn't doing something right now where we couldn't be showing, like, here's the Atlas doing its thing. Here's another rocket doing its thing, like at the same time. That's
real quick.
Cool.
Mary, how's it going? Like.
Yeah, because Das, like one of the things I loved, one of the best broadcasts I think we did was the marathon of Solar Orbiter rollout, Antares rollout.
Oh yeah.
Cape pad tour, and then Antares pad tour, where it was just like 5 hours of going back and forth between two different sites 1,000 kilometers away from each other, because they were launching within 5 hours of each other, where they were supposed to.
They were supposed to. I missed that one.
Yeah, but yeah, it is really fun, and I mean, like to your point, like it is good to have someone like you guys behind in the studio, right? Because like what happened today, our plan was to be live at 7 a.m.
Yep.
But so many people showed up, and because we all have to convoy in our own cars, and they have to come to us car by car to check us in with the COVID-19 restrictions, and close to 50 people showed up.
Wow.
So we were 15 minutes late leaving. Normally, if it was just me, I'd be panicking. About, oh my God, the live stream's going to be late. Oh my God. But all I had to do was just tell you, hey, I'm going to be 15 minutes late from what we were planning. You can still go live if you want,
And we were definitely working on going live for 15 minutes, so.
Well, but it was the point that we could have, right? Like you could have totally streamed saying, Chris is driving in the gate right now.
See,
that's really cool.
I like that. Yeah, I really like that because it's like, oh, we're standing by. Chris is driving out there right now. Like, I don't know. It makes it more of an experience than just like, now we'll cut to the official camera. That's all right. Cool. Good job.
Yeah, and I mean, like, wasn't there even one where like there was a traffic jam getting into Kennedy? Or something.
Oh yeah.
For Starlink, and like, but you guys were able to pull up Google Maps and show them the traffic jam.
Show the traffic. It's like, here's the traffic that Chris is sitting in right now.
All part of the experience. I love it.
I like it.
Well, I can see the rocket again.
That's good. It's still venting.
Yeah. Let me look at the radar on my phone real quick and see if it's safe to venture it back outside an hour before liftoff here.
Now wait a second, Chris.
Yeah, 11 Eastern. We are 1 hour, 1 hour and 2 minutes away from the next.
Chris, we can't hear you anymore. When did you switch to the weather on your phone?
10-minute window.
That has to be the issue. Or that may be the issue. Chris, we could not hear you. You said you were switching to the weather app.
Hello, can you hear me now?
We can hear you now. As soon as you started to switch to the weather app, it started to robot and pixelate. Like we couldn't hear you all of a sudden. So
But you can hear me now.
yes, I can hear you now. But when you were
Okay,
when you were changing,
it wasn't an app thing because I didn't have a chance to open anything before you
Oh,
told
great,
me you
okay.
couldn't hear me.
Literally, as soon as you said, "Let me check the weather," it started to go all robot-y again. So I thought that might be yeah.
Good to know. Good to know.
I thought that might be
Yeah,
something.
you know, what's weird about the ITL Causeway and getting into my car is it does kind of semi-block the line of sight to the cell tower.
Right.
At the shuttle landing facility, which is the one we can pick up easiest from the ITL Causeway.
Yep.
So
there's another
yes,
question that came through here. You want to do another question?
sure.
So this one was from Stephen Bolden, and Stephen asked, "How long can the fuel stay in the rocket before it has to be?" It says restored if not being used. I mean, the Atlas is RP1, right? Uh-oh. That was an inopportune time to lose Chris. Chris, are you there? We can't. Okay, now you're
Yeah,
back.
I'm here.
All right, now we heard you.
Yeah,
okay, I heard you again.
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, so
Yeah, I heard the question loud and clear.
good.
Yeah, so the Atlas uses RP1 kerosene, ambient air temperature RP1 kerosene. That is actually loaded into the vehicle shortly after it reaches the pad at rollout.
Right.
So when they are fueling operations on launch day, the RP1 kerosene is not included in that because it's already in there. And if it's like a day or two delay, if they scrub and it's going to be a day or two, they won't detank that RP1 kerosene. They'll leave it in there.
Gotcha.
But they would, if we do scrub today, they would detank the liquid oxygen from both the Atlas and the Centaur, and they would detank the liquid hydrogen from the Centaur. Oxygen and the liquid, what's known as stable replenish.
Okay.
So they continue to pump in liquid oxygen and liquid hydrogen into the two components of the rocket at the same rate that it boils off at. So it's basically like if you fuel up your car,
right?
If you put gas in your car, and then as you were driving, you just kept putting in the same amount of gas that you were using, so the tank was always full.
Yep.
That's what stable replenish is for a rocket.
Gotcha.
So they'll stay in stable replenish. They can stay in stable replenish for hours. It's a very, as the name implies, stable state of the vehicle. So yes, keeping that going for the duration of this window is not a problem.
Yeah, this is Mikkel S says it's like trickle charging. You're like trickle charging the rocket battery, I guess, but it's fuel, right?
Yes. Yes, thank you. I tried to get a battery analogy in my head since I have an electric car, but I just couldn't get there quick enough in a way that would be instantly understandable for everyone. But trickle charging, yes,
nice. Trickle charging. I like it. Again, if you're just joining us, folks, wherever you are, maybe you've been with us for a while because we've been live for an hour and a half or something now, right? We are standing by.
About an hour to go.
Yeah, we're standing by for this Atlas 501. It's out there on the pad. The weather has not been cooperating. We were not able to launch in the first window. We had a window just a little bit under an hour ago now. We have just about an hour remaining before the next window opens up, where they're going to try to put this X-37B up into orbit. That, of course, is the DoD Spaceplane, the super secretive space plane that carries super secretive experiments up. We don't know what's inside of it. We just know that it's the X-37B. But it's flying on this Atlas 501, and we are waiting to see if we're going to get another chance to launch here in about an hour. 58 minutes, actually, the next window opens.
I am actually pulling up, because this is one of the things I forget that I have. I can pull up the internet on my car's display screen.
Oh, there you go.
So I'm actually pulling up the radar right now. Yeah. It comes with an a built-in internet browser.
You should go to youtube.com and go to the NASA Spaceflight channel and see if
it's not good enough connectivity for that.
Come on, Starlink. I was told.
I did try. Let me put in Cape Canaveral because the radar is not looking good, folks. Let's just be very clear about this. There's a huge offshore flow of tropical moisture that's associated with a tropical low, like a tropical storm, but less intense, that passed over us yesterday. So it's a bunch of tropical moisture that's just being blown in off the ocean, and there's just a line of it out there.
Yeah.
When you can see it. So unfortunately, like, it doesn't look great, but we're not going to give up on, obviously. But I think there were a lot of us who knew that today was going to be iffy
Yeah.
at best.
Yeah.
If we attempt. So yeah, weather doesn't look too good.
Yep, and I've got the radar up here as well. I can show people really quickly the
Yes,
weather
please
that's
do.
sort of
Yeah.
blowing in off the ocean there,
Yeah.
and I've got it animated so you can see the rain is actually approaching right in
Yeah.
this area here. This is where Cape Canaveral Air Force Station would be. Let's see here. There's Merritt Island. Yeah, there's Cape Canaveral Air Force Station right in here. So you can see all off the edge here. The rocket launch pad that we're talking about is actually going to be right in this area here. Right here is where the rocket is. And you can see there's active rain going over the pad areas on the weather radar right now. So not
It actually
ideal.
just started raining where I am
Yeah.
again. So yeah.
Ah. Oh, and
Yeah.
this is where Chris is. This is the ITL causeway right here. So this Titan 3 road, it's labeled. That's actually the ITL, right, Chris?
Which is exactly where I am.
Yeah,
Titan 3 Road. Yep.
Yep. And then the launch pads are going to be up this way.
Yeah. So where Titan 3 Road goes across when it becomes like the little island, the little strip of land going across where toward the ocean side, right, where it makes where it's coming down, where it makes like a 90-degree turn, basically, to head out across the water.
Yep.
Is exactly where I am at that 90-degree turn.
You're like here. I could draw it on the screen.
Just barely to the west of that 90-degree turn is where I am.
Nice. I'm going to put a little dot here where Chris is, y'all. So Chris is sitting right about here. I've been there a few times.
That generally sounds about right.
Yeah, right
yeah.
there.
Let me see if it's better. YouTube. Let me go to YouTube.
You're gonna try to bring it up. Nice.
I doubt it. Like, it's gonna reek
Just set it on like 160p quality or something like that.
Yeah.
So anyways, y'all, like while Chris is doing that, we are standing by. We're now less than an hour before the next launch attempt. The rocket is on the pad. It's fully fueled. You can see that it's venting liquid oxygen there. That's normal.
Yeah.
And was that an update there?
There we go. I'm back.
Okay, good.
So what I discovered is that I can go to any website I want except YouTube.
Aha.
YouTube disconnects the call. Yes. Remember how I said it was going to wreak havoc on the audio system? And oh boy, did it.
So you could go to twitch.tv and... No, I'm kidding.
Yeah.
Because the feed is on Twitch too right now. So, anyways, y'all,
Dawson, I'm not gonna, given what that radar looks like, I'm not gonna get the camera back out of the car until we know what they're going to do, until we know what ULE is going to do.
That sounds like a plan. We've got the ULA camera up right now, so.
Yeah, because just watching that band, I'd get it all set up and would just have to instantly put it back in the car.
Yep. No, I don't fault you that for anything. The interesting thing about what's on the screen right now, y'all, this is also a crew access tower in the background. So Atlas is launching out of Pad 41, and the structure off to the left hand, not the one that says ULA on it, but the structure that actually has the sort of girders you can see, that is a tower that the crew will board whenever crew is launching on Starliner, right, Chris?
That is correct. Yes, indeed.
So we can't quite see the crew access arm is folded back away. Of course, it's not important for this mission because there is no crew on the X-37B, but it's sort of on the far side of the camera here. I just realized, like, we've been sitting here looking at a launch pad that will hopefully be launching crew. I'm just going to say sometime in the near future.
Right.
So...
Well, but let's talk about that. We're talking about the Atlas, right? So let's talk about what the schedule for Starliner is right now, because as we know, there were a few significant software anomalies that were uncovered on the first flight. They're going to redo the uncrewed orbital flight test sometime this year. Almost certainly not until fall, based on some things that Boeing and NASA have said about how long it's going to take them to work through the software recertification process, and and everything like that. So we don't have a firm date, and they don't want to set one until they know, which obviously
Makes sense.
But yeah, there is room in Atlas's schedule. Atlas has a very busy schedule this year for it. And there is room in that manifest for later this year, September, October-ish. But the other consideration for when OFT flies now and when CFT, their crew flight test, Starliner's equivalent of Demo 2, which is a couple less than 2 weeks away from launching now with crew.
Right.
All of Starliner's schedule now also has to factor into what is the crew on orbit doing? When can we actually fit in an uncrewed test of Starliner coming up to the station when Dragon is going to be there? Because we know Dragon's going to be there now, because Dragon is going to start crew rotations in August or September, like full 4-person crew rotations in August or September. So we know it's going to be there. And when can it go? How does it fit into the overall mission? And then when CFT, the crew flight test, goes, now NASA has to make the decision of, do they want that to be a 6-month crew rotation flight with, Ferguson and Nicole Mann and Mike Fink on board? They're the crew for the crew flight test. Yep. Or do they want it to be, or do they want to revert it back to the original plan of it just being a quick 2-week test flight to get it up there, get it certified to fly crew, and then have it available for those longer duration missions? So lots of questions and new uncertainty, because Dragon will be flying and NASA will be rotating crew already when Starliner comes online now.
Yeah.
So all very interesting things that have to be considered now for Starliner that makes its schedule a little unknown.
Gotcha. So speaking about crew rotations and astronauts and the crewed launches and stuff,
Yeah.
Barak asked, can astronauts vote in elections while they're in space? Is it like a mail-in ballot or something?
This is a fascinating question.
Yeah.
Yes, they totally can. They totally can, and they totally do. Most of the time, so NASA has, because most astronauts are residents of the U.S. state of Texas, because they move there when they are chosen as NASA astronauts.
For Johnson, right, where they trained.
At Johnson, exactly. Yep. So they live and train in Houston. So mainly this has to do with Texas. So for those of you who are not who don't live in the United States and don't know how our elections work, even when we have a national election, like a presidential election, they are still technically 51 individual elections handled by the 50 states and the District of Columbia.
Okay.
All independent of one another. They all have different rules. They all have different voting styles, different voting machines, blah, blah, blah. So this is where I say it's mostly with NASA working with the state of Texas, because that's who they have to clear it with, because that's the state the astronauts voted.
Ah, gotcha.
And they let them either vote by mail if they are launching before the election, but when vote by mail ballots have already been allowed to go out, they're allowed to vote early. Or for cases when that's not applicable because they launch 5 months before the election, right? They transmit up the ballot to them.
Really?
And they return it back on a secure server so that they can vote in their elections. Being in space is not an impediment to voting in U.S. elections.
I mean, I think if you can vote from space, you should be able to vote from anywhere, right?
Right. Now the reason I wanted to start by saying, as of right now, it's just a collaboration between NASA and the state of Texas's Department of Elections. But this is going to have to change, because SpaceX is going to be flying regular, ordinary civilians on flights. So this is going to have to change. And this question of how are we going to do it? What if the state law doesn't permit that?
Interesting.
Right. There are states that have very restrictive voting requirements.
So you may be like an orbital tourist who's a resident of some other state. The election happens while you're on your, I say tour, whatever, while you're on your mission, and that would be governed by the state that you're a resident of, or country, or whatever, I guess, right?
Correct. Yes.
Yeah, but would they get their "I voted" sticker?
Yeah, they probably don't. Yeah.
It's a special one. It said "I voted" from space on the bottom.
From
like,
space. It has a little ISS on it. Like, yeah. But no, that's an excellent question. And yeah, they vote and they do. Yep.
Excellent. Send Dragon up with a ballot, poll boxes, and poll workers. There's enough room in the Dragon for all that stuff, right?
Oh my God, as a poll worker, yes. Can you send me up in a Dragon to go let the station crew vote? I'd do that. Although I think it's cheaper if they just send the ballot up electronically. But
you'd need some residents of Florida up on the space station so you could go up there as a poll worker for Florida, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, any update on the go no go, Michael? I don't know if Michael's still listening to us here. Have you heard anything else?
Here. The countdown net is currently dead quiet.
Okay.
So,
gotcha. So
Which
no update on
is
the
about right,
weather.
Because they said they wouldn't come back, which makes sense at the countdown net. Yeah. So this is one of those things. Actually, I want to go back, Michael, because what you just said is actually the second part of the answer that someone asked earlier about, like, what do they do with the fuel on board the rocket when they enter these extended holds, right? From the launch team perspective, if nothing breaks, like if a sensor doesn't go out of alignment, if there's nothing new that crops up when they enter these prolonged holds after they've already done their go no go poll, there's nothing to talk about.
Right.
So they're silent. And actually at this point, United Launch Alliance countdowns are usually very talkative. Right. And silence is usually a bad thing, with the exception of when we get into these prolonged holds. We want silence during prolonged holds.
Right.
Because silence means everything with the rocket and ground system is still perfectly fine. We're literally just waiting out the weather to the new window.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So people are off on this this kick that we were talking about voting, and so there's another question: do the astronauts have to do their taxes while they're in space?
Yes, they do.
I imagine they have their accountant on the ground do their taxes while they're in space.
But yes, exactly that, right? Being in space, there's no reason you can't file your taxes, because your taxes can be filed as an ordinary person living on Earth,
right?
And in the United States, right? Your taxes can be filed by proxy,
right? Your
accountant can file them for you. And everything like that. So it works the exact same way in space. Yes, being on board the International Space Station is not a valid excuse for an extension of your taxes.
It's not like international waters or anything like that, right? Like, no.
No, not like that. Yeah.
That's so. That's curious. Is that a? What is the technicality of the ISS there? Is the ISS part U.S. soil? Is it part Russian soil? Is it, like, do you know technically,
yes.
jurisdictional wise?
Yes. So, I
mean, I just tossed this out there. Not to put you on the spot.
No, it's a good question, and it's got a kind of complicated answer. So I was trying to figure out where I wanted to start with this.
Sure.
The basic answer is both a no and a yes.
Okay.
The International Space Station is not the sovereign property or sovereign soil of one particular nation.
Okay.
It is very much in that regard like the United Nations, right? Where the United Nations is located, the headquarters is located within New York City,
right?
But they are technically not part of the United States.
Gotcha.
That
right.
ground, right? It's technically doesn't belong to anyone. That was. Long story short, the U.S. and New York basically gifted that land to the United Nations. So it does not technically belong to anyone. That is true with the International Space Station as well, where the individual nations that the astronauts belong to or are citizens of would technically have the legal jurisdiction if you were to do something illegal or commit a crime.
Okay.
On the station. Now, we've never run into that yet. And I would hope we never would.
Murder on the space station. Like,
yeah,
what?
but yes, it's not like it's U.S. like that. If you enter a U.S. built module, you're technically all of a sudden on U.S. soil. And if you enter a Russian module, you're on Russia or Japan or that. It just sort of exists. And then your countries are still responsible for you legally.
Like, nobody's going to try to extradite you from the Zarya module to Columbus.
Correct. Yes.
That's not how it
Yeah.
works.
Yeah.
So basically they could do a Mark Watney like in The Martian and become pirates. I think that the people who go up to the space station are pretty well checked out to make sure none of them are going to try to become space pirates. Like,
True.
there's a form involved. They go through testing just to make sure that's not going to happen.
Right. There's a border check between the U.S. and no, like
There's a border checkpoint. You have to have your passport.
between Unity and Zarya. There's a checkpoint. Like between the
As
US
long
and
as nobody tries to build a wall over there, I think we're good.
Yeah, but what is interesting about the station, right, is that even though it's Russia, the U.S., Canada, Europe, and Japan, right, as the partnership, the station technically only has two owners.
Okay.
There's the Russian segment owned by Roscosmos,
Right.
and there's the U.S. segment owned by the United States. And the U.S. segment includes the Canadian robots, the Canadian robot arms like Dexter and Canadarm2, and it includes the European Columbus module and the Japanese Kibo lab element. So technically, Canada, Europe, and Japan function as part of the US owned and operated side of the station, which is why Canadian, European, and Japanese astronauts are considered part of the US crew for.
Right.
Okay, and we have an update.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah.
So right after I said that the launch countdown or the launch net had been quiet, we just got a several-minute briefing. They are going to do manual monitoring of the ground wind limit starting at T-minus 3 minutes and up until T-minus 20 seconds instead of autonomously monitoring that to give them a better chance to launch. So I'm guessing. And the interesting thing is, if they do it at the if they do it at the top of the window, they start monitoring at T-minus 3 minutes and 10 seconds. If they do it at the end of the window, they start monitoring at T-minus 3 minutes. I'm not sure why that's different, but from around T-minus 3 minutes to T-minus 20 seconds, they're going to manually monitor the ground wind limit to give them a better chance of launch.
Well, I'm manually monitoring the wind limit right now, and I see birds flying backwards still, so I'm not a wind expert, but if the bird is flying backwards...
Yeah. Now, Michael, that's good to hear, because I'm sure you remember, like I do, that there was an Atlas mission with Cygnus several years ago in December that had very, very similar weather setup to today, where the winds were like right at the upper limit that was allowable for ground winds for liftoff. And if you put in an automatic mode, right, to monitor those in the terminal count, the T-minus 4 minutes through liftoff, any time a sensor on one of the lightning towers at the pad breaches the upper limit, even if it's a gust for just a second, it stops the whole countdown sequence and forces a recycle.
Right.
But if you put it into manual mode, it doesn't automatically issue the cutoff and recycle. So if you have a momentary gust that takes you over that limit, if you're in manual mode, the countdown keeps going, and if it drops back down into limits very quickly, you're good to proceed. So that's why they're doing manual instead of automatic for wind monitoring.
When they said manual wind monitoring, I figured it was somebody out there with like an anemometer or something, like holding it up.
Oh, yes. What's that gif of the guy with the really long hair in a Florida hurricane, like metal head banging in the street and 80-mile-an-hour winds? Like, yeah, is that what you're picturing? Like someone out there with a little wind monitor? Like,
yeah, exactly. And he's just like
reporting
I don't know,
it
back.
Says 21, no 22, no 21. Like.
I think it's wait a second, it's this guy. This is the guy we're talking about. I got the image on the screen. The Florida man in the hurricane.
Right? Yes, that one. Exactly.
Oh no.
Oh my god, it's amazing. It's amazing sometimes. Yeah.
Yeah. Just hanging out. So we're about 40 minutes, a little bit less than 40 minutes away from the second opening of the window. Actually, 36 minutes away from the second attempt to launch today. Continuing to monitor the weather. Weather's still not looking great, but United Launch Alliance still. I'm going to use the terminology going through the motions of the launch. We know that tomorrow the weather was supposed to improve a lot. I don't know if we've got an update on that, but it was like. What was
It was 80% go for tomorrow.
Yeah.
Last I saw, yeah.
So almost a 180-degree flip, right, between a 20% go to an 80% go.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, a 180 flip. Yeah, and like what's good to stop and point out is like what Michael relayed in terms of the update for manual monitoring of the winds. That is not because wind is the only potential violation here. It's still raining where I am right now.
Right.
There's still large rain complexes moving toward us off the Atlantic. Das, I don't know if the weather you're showing, if you can pop up the radar again and
sure.
just show people what's off the coast and moving toward us. The whole they're going to manually monitor winds. That's not an indication of wind being the only thing. Right.
Yep.
It's just literally like manually monitoring wind might be the saving grace that allows them to get off the ground if they can find a hole through the clouds and find a hole through the rain.
Right.
Those two, as well as the electrical charge in the atmosphere, that's being monitored by things called electrical field mills here at the Cape, which show how much electricity is in the atmosphere, if the rocket might trigger lightning or cause lightning as it ascends. Those three are still the far bigger concern than the ground winds.
Gotcha. And so I've got the weather radar up right now, and I've put a dot where the rocket is. That would be right around where pad 41 is there under my poorly drawn arrow. But you can see all the precipitation coming in off the, that would be the Atlantic Ocean. I almost said Gulf of Mexico. Wrong side of Florida. But that's where the rocket launch pad is. And you can see all that weather sort of coming into the area. Yeah. So,
and actually, it's raining a little bit harder at ITL right now than it was when we started this conversation a few seconds ago.
We're getting fresh drops on the United Launch Alliance camera out there as well, so we can definitely see that it's coming in. And it's not like almost done. It's more behind what's at you right now.
Yeah.
So.
So I mean, if I were a betting man, we never stop. We never shut a stream down. We never do anything until there's an official word of a scrub. But if I were a betting person, I would say that we will be coming back here tomorrow to cover the Atlas launch on its backup day of Sunday, which would push the SpaceX Falcon 9 to Monday.
Right.
Still, both of them would happen within 19 and a half hours of each other. Just everything shifts 24 hours.
Everything shifts over. Gotcha.
Yeah, and Starlink's time would adjust, and this launch, Michael, we have the launch. Has ULA? Sorry, let me rephrase that. I'm thinking of two different things. We have the launch time for Starlink, so we know when Starlink would adjust to if it delays a day. Has ULA put out what the launch windows are for tomorrow for X-37B yet? Because I'm imagining it might be something where this window adjusts to, especially if they're trying to do an orbital pass of it with another satellite, it would have to adjust for timing.
Right. Yeah, so the launch, according to the hazard zones, I don't think we've seen an official time from ULA, but we could be wrong. The window for tomorrow would be from 3:14 to 15:32 UTC, which would be 9:14 Eastern.
Nope, 7:14.
Oh, correct. Yeah, sorry. But wasn't it 5? It was 12:24. What was the window today?
The window today was 12:24 for an 8:24 local. 8:24 is 12.
It's 13:14 UTC now, so that would be 9:14 Eastern.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, to 10:32 Eastern.
Okay.
Excuse me, I got that part wrong. 9:14 Eastern to 11:32 Eastern. Yeah, so about a little over 2 hour window for tomorrow's attempt.
Okay, so and again, like that much of a change from day to day really does indicate that they're trying to get close to something in orbit.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we wouldn't see the daily launch windows change that much. If it was just trying to get to orbit and it didn't have to get near something
Right.
or rendezvous
It's
with
trying to run
something
or go into some specific orbital slot or something.
exactly to
Yeah,
be
yeah.
photographed. If that article that we posted further up in chat, and Michael, we can put it up again, is correct, that they're trying to get it within range of another spy satellite to photograph it shortly after launch, that would totally explain the wild change in daily launch times as we move from day to day
Yeah.
for this one.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there was
Just
another
as Starlink is going to adjust by a few minutes because it's trying to get into the same a very specific orbital plane.
Yep.
Right, and you have to launch when that plane crosses the launch pad every day.
And we do see on the stream right now, we see some blue skies up above the rocket. So on the ULA camera,
let me help you with that. If you're seeing blue skies, you're seeing a very, very narrowly focused camera.
yeah. Well, there's a pretty good hole up there, and then off in the distance, we can actually see past the rain because this is a camera that looks like it's on ground level, looking up at the rocket, and we can see perfectly blue skies way off in the distance there. So
yes. So if depending on where the camera angle is, do you know or do you have a good orientation, Das or Michael, if the camera is pointed north or south?
this camera, the wind is moving from the right to the left-hand side of the screen, so I would imagine that this would be looking north or northeast.
Okay. Yep, that matches what I'm seeing. So yeah, that hole in the cloud that you're seeing there
Yeah,
to the
is it
northeast
just right there?
is not in the direction we need it to be, and not moving the direction we need it to be either.
Gotcha.
No, we need a hole in the weather to the east of the rocket.
Right.
Because it will pitch over and head for a roughly 44 point something degree inclination orbit. So it will go east northeast out of the Cape
Yeah.
today.
Gotcha.
So anything to the northeast of the pad is not useful to us.
Right. Gotcha. So there was another question that came in that I thought would be good to address really quickly. We keep saying that SpaceX has to wait for the ULA rocket and things get pushed back, and we need to clarify the difference between the range and the pad. So United Launch Alliance and SpaceX do not launch on the same pad, and I'll bring this up, Chris, while you talk about the difference between the range and the pad.
Yes. So the range is what we refer to as the control authority over the Cape Canaveral Air Force Station and the Kennedy Space Center.
Right.
We refer to it as either the range, the eastern range, the 45th Space Wing. All three of those terms mean the same thing. It's the control authority that has the final yes, you are cleared from a safety perspective to go.
Right.
If the range even saw like one of these companies violating the company's own personal launch commit criteria, the range could interfere and say no.
Right.
If they wanted. Now they normally don't, because normally when a company goes into like violating their own commit criteria, it's because, oh, sensor 1 failed, so we're not looking at it anymore, but we've still got 3 out of 4 good sensors.
Right.
We're fine. Even though our flight rules technically say we need 4 to lift off, 3's fine.
Gotcha.
Right. That's normally what they get into, and the range is usually always fine with that. But the range could override if needed.
Gotcha.
But providers never get themselves into that situation.
Yeah. So I've got the map of...
The pads are owned by the specific companies, though. So, like, what we're looking at today is the United Launch Alliance pad for the Atlas V. They have control over their pad, but they need permission from the range to use it to launch.
Right. So I've got the map of the range and the pads up on the screen right now, and so I've got 5 pads circled. I guess 4 of those pads are active, right? Because we've got from north to south. You start off with 39B, an old shuttle pad, an old Apollo pad, way up at the top. That one's not active right now, but they're working on building that for. That's the big rocket. What's the other rocket? SLS.
SLS and Omega. It's a
Omega.
pad that will be shared by 2 rockets. Yes.
Right. So 39B up at the top there, that's part of that's part of Kennedy Space Center, right?
Yes.
And that's 39B, but that one's not launching yet. 39A is where SpaceX launches the Falcons from right now. So Falcon 9, the crew launch is happening from 39A. That's the one that's coming up for DM2, right?
Correct. Yes.
And that is also part of.
And also the only launch pad where the Falcon Heavy can go from
Right.
as well.
Gotcha. So both of those 39A and 39B, those are both part of Kennedy Space Center, right? And then when you get down,
now we get into a wonderful moment of where is the boundary between Kennedy and the Cape.
I just drew a big line that says these pads are Kennedy, and then the other one. So 41, 40, and 37, those are also rocket launch pads, but those are part of Cape Canaveral Air Force Station, right?
Yes and no.
Yes and no. Okay. So go.
40 and 37B, so the Falcon 9 pad and the Delta IV Heavy pad, the two southernmost pads on what you've got highlighted, DOS.
Right.
Those are 100% Cape Canaveral Air Force Station.
Okay.
The Atlas pad is a little different. The Atlas pad is technically a Kennedy Space Center owned Cape Canaveral Air Force Station leased pad.
What?
Because the boundary between the two actually runs between pad 41 and pad 40.
Okay.
So operationally, the Atlas pad is a Cape Canaveral pad, but in legal terms, it is actually owned and part of the Kennedy Space Center.
Okay, gotcha. So the range is the whole thing.
You
right?
asked the question.
Yes. The range is the authority that governs all the pads, right? And sometimes if you have something happening, like you have a test happening at 41, that's going to impact 40. People can't be hanging out doing operations at 40 if you're doing some things at 41, right? So the range controls all this thing to make sure that the entire facility or facilities is safe. But each rocket company has their own pads. SpaceX has 39A and 40, and then United Launch Alliance has 41 and 37B, and then SLS flying off 39 maybe one day, who knows. I like rockets, I hope it flies. That's 39B, and then that Omega one up there as well. So different physical launch pads, but all one range that operates them. Hopefully that clears it up for everybody.
Yes, and it's the range is the control authority, right, that works with the providers to make what we see or what we're aiming for this weekend a possibility, right, with Atlas going from one pad and then Falcon 9 following from a completely different pad 19 and a half hours later.
Right.
That's the range coordinating those two events.
Yes. And you see that. I mean, the range is one of the entities, I guess you could say, one of the people in the go no go poll, right?
Yes, indeed.
So as they go through,
you hear, yeah.
Yep, there's all the internal systems and people and fueling and safety and stuff like that. But one of the last ones, one of the top authorities for whether or not this rocket's going to go is the range. And the range may be weather, the range may be safety, like the range isn't clear, there's a wayward boat or something like that. But the range is, I think the range was third to last on this. So they have a go no go say in whether or not the rocket launches, right?
And the range for how we hear it in those go no go polls, it is actually broken up into several different entities. So there's range that you hear.
Yep.
You'll also hear in ULA launches them say they'll ask a phrase, range report rock status.
Right.
And rock is actually an acronym. It's ROC, Range Operations Control.
Gotcha.
So they're asking Range Operations Control if the range, like the tracking assets, are still good.
Gotcha.
And ready. The other element of the range is weather. When you hear the weather officer, that weather officer is part of the range. They are not part of the rocket team,
right,
or the company launching. And so you have all these various things, right? But the range is actually broken down into a couple of different things for polling purposes, even though it's one entity.
Gotcha. All right.
And that's actually what we just heard, right? Where the range, right? Everything from the range's technical perspective was ready for today. It was the range weather that was in violation,
gotcha,
which kicked us out.
Right.
Even though the range itself was ready. Yeah.
Gotcha. So again, y'all, where are we at?
I know.
No. I'm looking at the time here, and we're
22 minutes away from the window.
Yep.
Yeah.
So we are continuing to stand by. it's starting to spool back up here again because that window is going to open in about 20 minutes. So thanks for confusing me
so
even
it's
more.
raining a little bit harder at the causeway, and it's raining at the launch pad now. So
Oh,
hooray!
I wonder when it's raining, is there more of an icing issue on the rocket? Because we know that down in Florida with the condensation, you got the humidity in the atmosphere anyways, and the LOX tanks are cold, and so the ice forms on the side of the LOX tanks, right?
Yep,
I wonder
it
if
100%.
Yeah.
It does cause more ice buildup.
Yeah, because
yes,
we keep seeing ice falling off the side of the rocket, and it's blowing off the side and sort of falling down onto the launch pad. I imagine that if you have more water running down the sides of the rocket, because clearly it's raining on the rocket, if you don't get thicker ice or different types of ice on that thing, you know?
Yeah. You may. I mean, at the end of the day, it's just water.
Right.
That really is condensing on the outside of that. Most of that condensation is exactly what you said. It's from humidity, right? It's from water molecules condensing out of the air on the cold surface of the vehicle. But rain does add it. Now, the important thing here is that ice is in no way a concern for the Atlas.
Right.
There is nothing that ice could fall off and hit that would be a problem.
I gotcha. Like a chunk of ice falling and hitting something.
Right. So, really, the only vehicle that we had where ice was a problem was the shuttle, because the ice could come off and hit the thermal protection system of the shuttle orbiter and damage it during launch, which is why that was a huge problem. But for these inline rockets, ice is not a problem. In fact, they don't even put insulation on the Atlas. They just let it ice up because it's not a concern.
Gotcha. Yeah. God, there's so much ice flaking off the side. Like I'm just sitting here watching, and Chad, I don't know if y'all can see this, but there's just ice almost constantly falling off the side of it now. So if this thing were to launch, the ice breaking off the side would probably be a pretty spectacular view.
It is. If we launch today, or even if we launch tomorrow, we'll have to remember to say this tomorrow if we have to come back.
Yep.
Is at engine ignition, when the RD-180 engine lights, you will see a shower of ice cascade off this rocket. It is absolutely gorgeous to watch, especially like some of the really slow motion launch replays. Mm-hmm. It is just killer to watch the ice break off.
I kind of want to go over there and catch some of that ice and then like put it in a glass of iced tea or something, just so I can say.
I mean, you'd be charred to a crisp if you tried to do that.
Just like right now as it's falling off, I'd like to go collect some ice, maybe with a robot while I stay at a safe distance, and then just drink some water using ice fresh off the rocket. Like,
I love it. And I love the ridiculousness of covering rocket launches where, like, your statement was, I want to go out and capture ice in a jar. And my response was, you would be burned to death.
You're going to die.
Like, when we're talking about capturing ice but being burned, like, we've got some weird connection of things happening, right?
Well, speaking of capturing ice, that's one of the things with the whole cislunar thing where we're talking about Artemis, blah, blah, blah. Anyways.
There we go!
Hey.
Yes.
If we captured some of that ice, we could actually melt it down and then break it into hydrogen and oxygen, giving us things to breathe and rocket fuel.
For those of you who are wondering, in terms of the weather, we have really low-level clouds coming off of the ITL, coming over the ITL causeway now. It's still raining here, and we are 18 minutes away from an opening of a 10-minute launch window, and we've still got a whole bunch of stuff coming in off the Atlantic.
And that one starts at 10:13 Eastern, I believe. 10:13.
It is indeed. And Michael, do we have I think they're on they're easily findable, but since me searching destroys my ability to talk, can we pull up the launch commit criteria, the launch weather commit criteria for the Atlas V? Because I believe it's no rain within 5 or 10 nautical miles of the pad and the flight path of the vehicle, which based on the radar looks like it's going to be a very not impossible, but difficult task to accomplish today.
I'm putting in our control center a link to it so you can put it up on screen for us.
Sure, no problem.
Yes, so wind at launch pad exceeds 61 kilometers per hour, 30 8 miles per hour or 33 knots. So that is the ground wind constraint. I'm not sure if that changes at all depending on the exact configuration of the launch vehicle or whatnot, but 33 knots is the limit for ground winds, according to Wikipedia.
Is
Gotcha.
that the Atlas V right there, huh? There's the
Yeah.
information. So literally,
Yeah.
this is just Wikipedia, y'all. Anybody
Yeah.
could go to this page.
Yeah, and then there's the range rules, like no rain within X number of miles of the vehicle.
Yeah, let me
and
see.
pad as it ascends, no flight through cumulus clouds. Again, something that's going to be a tall order today.
Yep.
Considering we're just socked in with cumulus clouds. Annoyingly, that gap to the northeast looks like it could be absolutely perfect if it just was in a different location.
Yeah, if it was just in the right spot.
Yeah, if it just wasn't where it was in someplace completely different, it would be great for us right now.
Yeah. I see a launch constraint here about 10 nautical miles of the edge of a thunderstorm that is producing lightning for 30 minutes after the last lightning. I'm trying to
Yes.
see. There's a thunderstorm anvil within 10 nautical miles of the flight path.
Yeah.
Thunderstorm debris cloud, or fly through a debris cloud. What is a debris cloud for a thunderstorm? Is that rain, I wonder?
Oh, no, a debris cloud like from a forest fire or stuff like that.
Well, it says thunderstorm debris cloud.
Oh, it says thunderstorm debris
Yeah.
cloud. Then no, I don't know
That's
what that
weird.
is.
Yeah, I
Yes.
don't know what that one is. I'm trying to find the one. Do not launch through
Although,
disturbed
reading off of
weather.
if we are reading off of Wikipedia, there is a chance someone typed it wrong.
That's true. That's true.
Josh, I just linked a more official document.
A more
That
official document. Okay.
It's the one Wikipedia site, but it's just a NASA document for Atlas V.
Okay.
Make sure we have our information correct.
Yeah, I'm having trouble pasting over to the other computer, so I'm not going to be able to bring that one up until I fix it. But
the other one might, it's not as good of a format for stream because it's more vertical, but
gotcha.
yeah, cumulus cloud rolls do not launch within 5 to 10 miles of cumulus clouds with tops that extend into freezing temperatures. So
Okay. And the cumulus cloud flight rule was one of the main concerns. Actually, I think it was the main concern. Yeah, today, the one listed first. So, yeah. I mean, it's 13 minutes before launch, and it's raining where I am.
Well,
3
Chris,
miles from
I mean,
pad, so, yeah.
I could even say this. If it's continuing to rain, I don't know that you need to go and set the camera up. You know?
Yeah, I don't. I'm not going to until we know exactly what they're going to do.
Yeah.
Because it's not worth damaging the vital equipment that we need in a week and a half.
Yes, that's true. We don't want to be scrambling to get more stuff for DM2, so let's make sure that stays safe.
Everything takes like 3 weeks to get here now
of
our experience, in ordering stuff recently for Boca. Yeah.
Oh, hey, we've got the question that we always get. Speaking of weather and thunderstorms, the 4 towers that are around the launch pad. Yes! We always get that question.
One launch, we're going to get this question as a lightning strike hits one of them.
If we do enough launches, yeah.
Yes, so the 4 big towers are the lightning protection towers, which were needed today because we did have an electrical field mill reading measuring the electrical charge in the atmosphere that told us that if we would have launched earlier, there was a very good chance that Atlas would have created lightning and been struck by lightning during liftoff. So it was one of the 3 main weather reasons we delayed. Yeah, and what did I just hear there? Was there an update?
I don't believe so. Michael, anything?
No.
Oh, I thought I heard someone say something. Sorry.
Yeah, no, that's okay.
Okay. So those towers are there so that if there is a cloud to ground lightning strike that is triggered while a rocket is on the pad, whether it's fueled or not, it channels the electrical energy of the lightning hit safely down into the ground and keeps it from hitting the really expensive and important equipment, the fuel tanks that are at the pad. Because remember, even when a rocket's not on its launch pad, those fuel tanks are at the pad are filled with liquid hydrogen, liquid oxygen, and kerosene, extremely combustible substances that you don't want being hit by lightning. So
Yeah.
we have the lightning protection towers there to protect the pad, to protect the rocket, and when there are people working on the pad, to protect the people.
Yep.
As well. And most of the time, we don't need them, right? Like for launches, like most of the time, right? We get this question specifically because we don't need them.
Right.
But then we get today where we did need them. We get times during the Florida summer when we had massive afternoon thunderstorms that come overhead every single day, where we do get these really strong lightning strikes that hit the pad and hit the towers. And they have been instrumental in protecting rockets here since the 1950s.
Gotcha. I'm actually frantically Googling what a thunderstorm debris cloud is, because the official document also says thunderstorm debris cloud. But there's...
Das or Michael, to sort of hit home how important these lightning towers are, can one of you Google search STS-127 lightning strike?
Yeah, I got it.
There is an epic security camera image that was captured back in 2009, just 2 days before Space Shuttle Endeavour was supposed to launch, when 39A was struck by lightning, when the lightning tower was hit.
Yeah, it's on the screen right now.
Yeah, and that's it. And it protected the vehicle so well that it only took them 20 hours to clear over 1 million systems with the shuttle. Jeez. That it was fine and could just keep going. Yeah. So that's how good our lightning protection systems are. But when they are hit, when a vehicle is on the pad, it does trigger a complete review of the vehicle's electrical systems and avionics systems, just to make sure, because what you don't want to do is assume everything's fine, light your engines and release your rocket, and suddenly realize that part of your electronics were fried.
Yeah. And so I've got it actually freeze framed, and so this is this would actually be 39A, right? So 39A doesn't have the 4 towers around it. 39A has the one big structure, and it's hard to see on the security camera footage, but this is the lightning tower on the top of the structure at 39A, and then the shuttle would have been in here, right? Or on the side of it.
Yes, the shuttle would have been, it was in its rotating service structure.
Yeah.
Yes.
So you can see the bolt of lightning hitting the top of that service, the lightning tower there, instead of hitting the space shuttle. And then, of course, this has massive cables that ground it out to the ground over here and transmit the electrical charge away from the vehicle. So that's what those towers are, and that's a great video, Chris. Thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah, and that is the same lightning tower. And I wanted to make this point. I wanted this video for a point.
Yep.
That is the same bare metal structure, the big big tower that you see there with the lightning mast on top of it. That is the same ones that are still there at 39A now, protecting Falcon Heavy, Falcon 9, and Crew Dragon.
Yep.
Okay, let's return to the video because they're about to pull.
Oh, hey, yeah.
Yep.
They have a weather update.
And it's a spoiler alert, it's a scrub is what we've been told here.
Yeah. It still says current weather conditions, probability of violating constraints is still 80%. So 20% go, like we were expecting. We're probably not going to space today here, y'all.
We have been told here that don't bother to get out of your vehicles.
Don't bother to get out of your vehicle.
Which, again, is not a confirmed scrub, but
sure.
It is raining right now 3 miles from the pad. That is a violation of the launch commit criteria.
Yeah.
So yeah. Methinks we're going to get official commentary that we'll be doing this again tomorrow with the Atlas, and then we'll be doing it again on Monday for the Falcon.
And we have on the screen right now, they're applying the decal to the side of the fairing that was the COVID.
The America Strong.
Yeah, the America
one,
Strong, the COVID, not outreach. I can't come up with the right term.
Actually, let's talk about that, because this is one that originally got me. When I saw that one of the hashtags was America Strong, I for this mission, I originally thought it was a reference to the Space Force, to the classified, clandestine nature of this being under the Department of Defense for the U.S.
Gotcha.
Okay, they're gonna pull right now.
And I'll shut it up for the poll, but it wasn't until they said in a media release to us that America Strong was in honor of first responders and nurses and doctors for COVID-19,
Yep.
that I realized, oh, not a security thing.
Right.
Yeah. But anyway, if they're going to poll, let's listen in.
Yeah, I've got the audio. And Chris, since I can hear it in real time, I'll
L-7 minutes.
comment on that. So they just said L-7 minutes, and they're going to start the poll.
Proceed with terminal count. Atlas system. Propulsion.
Go.
Hydraulic.
Go.
Pneumatic. Go. LO2. Go. Water. Go. Centaur systems. Propulsion.
Go.
Pneumatic.
Go.
LO2.
Go.
LH2.
Go.
HASGAS.
Go.
Electrical system. Airborne.
Go.
Ground.
Go.
Facility.
Go.
RFFTF.
Go.
Flight control.
Go.
DCQ.
Go.
Operation support.
Go.
COM. COM.
Commons.
Umbilical.
Go.
ECS.
Go.
Redline monitor.
Go.
Quality.
Go.
Op safety manager.
Go.
ULA safety officer.
Go.
Vehicle system engineer.
Go.
Anomaly chief.
Go.
Range coordinator.
No go for range weather LCC violation.
Roger.
So we just heard
LD. LC. Net 1.
LD on 1.
Okay, with that no-go report, I recommend we set up for the end of the window.
You just said the end of the window, Chris.
For coordination.
Jesus, why are they trying this?
So we heard the range coordinator say that it was no go for weather. That was not a surprise at all. That is what we expected.
I'll get there.
But then we just heard them say that they would go for the end of the window. It's only a 10-minute
We're
window.
now resetting for a launch opportunity
So-
at the end
This
of the
is
window.
this is really just like sheer desperation.
Oh, I don't think they're desperation. I think they're just going through the proper processes. You know, the rocket's on the pad, the people are there, they're going through all the processes. Maybe one day there may be weather that might clear up, and it's good to get the practice, you know?
Yeah, no, I mean it is. It just is weird, like, because I get what you're saying in terms of the practice, but there does become a point where it's like, you know, you're not ready to go.
Yeah.
So why are you just redoing the poll every 10 minutes?
Yeah, I
You
think
know what I mean? Like, there is that.
Just going through it.
Yeah.
It's easier for me to say here, sitting back at my home, than you who is sitting in your car since 3 a.m. this morning, you know? I completely understand the difference in viewpoint there. Let's see here. Yep, I mean, right now they said the end of the window, so that would put it at 10:23, right? It was a 10-minute window.
Yep, that was the end of the 10-minute window.
Yeah.
So this is the final launch attempt for today.
Basically,
Chris, we don't know if you're breaking up. It sounds like you're. If you're talking right now, we cannot.
no.
hear you.
I'm typing it.
Oh, okay, cool, gotcha. All right. So anyways, y'all, it's still sitting at 80% no-go, only a 20% chance to go. It is not ideal weather at all at the Cape here. It really does look like they are probably going to go for a 24-hour recycle. We would be back tomorrow. ULA not calling it off yet, which, again, we're a little bit surprised about that they haven't called it off, because all indications show that this thing just is not, the weather is not going to cooperate.
Okay, I have an update.
Go ahead.
For this final attempt, they're going to give the range coordinator is expected at least to give a pending no-go call, assuming the weather does not change. They will continue to count until T-minus 60 seconds and give a final go, no-go call. So they're going to go to T-minus 60 seconds, and if the weather is still no-go, they will scrub for today, but they're going to give it one last shot, and this time they will come out of the hold.
Yeah.
Jesus.
God, that's just all the way down to
That is just.
I can't.
That is just.
I don't know the last time I've heard of that. Do you, Chris? We were having some hiccups with that there, y'all.
Coupling needs me. DOS?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
DOS?
Yes.
Okay. ULA has not done this, but SpaceX has, just because of the way the Falcon 9 works, where you start fueling 35 minutes before launch.
Right.
And they've only done it when it was an instantaneous single-second window for a station flight.
Gotcha.
Where they have started fueling with an observed no-go, but the critical point of that was that there was a chance that weather would improve.
Right.
They did this twice back-to-back last year. The first time they did it, the weather didn't improve in time, but a couple minutes later did. And then the second day they came in to do it, the weather did improve, and they launched.
Gotcha.
So when you do have those tight timelines, it makes sense. I can't say that that same sense makes sense today, if, for lack of a better term, that makes sense. Because we've sat out a 2.5 hour window.
Yeah.
There's no chance. But they're gonna try anyway. I mean, we'll see, but I mean, a test with X-37B. Might be part of its classified nature, where you has to attempt.
Yeah.
If there's a all we do know is that minute Hail Mary will make a final seconds when there's no chance of reality, for the weather clearing is not within family for how ULA operates.
Right.
And it's also still, DOS, can you still hear me?
Yes, we can hear you fine.
My only thing is it's still raining here on the causeway, so I can't get out and risk our equipment.
Right. Well, that's fine. We have the official feed here. Looks like we might have some audio hiccups there, y'all. Again, Chris is out there on the ITAIL Causeway. There's not very good service. The modems that we use for the stream are pretty powerful, but he's on his cell phone right now, so we have.
Can you hear me now?
We're having some hiccups. We sort of hear you off and on, Chris, right now.
Oh, okay.
Well, I was going to say, let's just watch the ULA stream anyway, because even if it were to launch, we're only going to see this rocket for 5 seconds before it goes into the cloud.
Exactly.
Yeah. And we need all that equipment to be healthy for DM2 coming up, so.
Yeah.
I think we're all on the same page there.
Well, Michael, they should get their poll in 2 minutes, because if they're going to pick up in time to launch at the end of the window, they've got to make a decision here in the next 2 minutes.
Yeah. So for everyone who's just joining, we expect they will not be able to launch today, but they're going to make one last attempt just to hope for a miracle, basically. So in this final poll, we expect a no-go pending range weather, and then it will go down to T-minus 60 seconds, and if it is still no-go based on weather, they will scrub to launch.
So let me make this a bit clearer for everyone. There's a large rain complex moving toward us, and huge dark cumulus clouds in the direct flight path of this rocket right now.
I don't think it's going anywhere.
Just makes it bizarre that they're gonna count to T-minus 60 seconds. I don't get it, but it certainly adds excitement.
It adds excitement.
I don't know what else to tell you here. Like, this is.
This reminds me of that SpaceX GPS launch attempt in 2019.
Oh my God! Yeah, where we did. Yeah, that was when. If I remember correctly, Michael, that was one where you were here for that. And I remember both driving in and texting each other going like, how? Like, it's pouring down rain. There's a huge, massive
rain. Sorry to interrupt, Josh. The poll is starting.
Yep, go.
All right.
Here we go.
They'll bring the stream audio back up and listen to their surprising. They're getting a lot of poll practice today, but we have a feeling that this is going to continue to be no goal, and they're going to say at T-minus 60 seconds that it's still no go, and this rocket is not going to fly through this massive cloud, this massive rain thunderstorm system. So I like to see rockets launch, but I think we're all on the same page that it is highly unlikely that anybody's going to say this thing's going.
Go. Pneumatics.
Go.
LO2.
Go.
Water.
Go.
Centaur systems. Propulsion.
Go.
Pneumatics.
Go.
LO2.
Go.
LH2.
Go.
Has-gas.
Go.
Electrical systems. Airborne.
Go.
Ground.
Go.
Facility.
Go.
RFFDS.
Go.
Flight control.
Go.
TC cube.
Go.
Operation support.
Go.
COM.
Why is Com always late to answer?
Umbilicals.
Go.
ECS.
Go.
Redline monitor.
Go.
Quality.
Go.
Op safety manager.
Go.
ULA safety officer.
Go.
Vehicle system engineer.
Go.
COM.
Com is
Repeat.
go.
Roger. Anomaly chief.
Go.
Range coordinator.
Go pending.
Go pending.
Launch director.
Waiting on the LD.
Launch vehicle is ready to launch.
Mission director.
Mission director, you have permission to launch.
Proceeding with the count. ALC. Verify T0 is set for 1423 Zulu.
Verified.
So Chris, we just heard them say that. Did we just heard them say go pending? It's the first time I've ever heard them say go pending.
Yeah, this is bizarre, and this is one where the range is going to get a lot of questions, and ULA is going to get a lot of questions, because it is just so obviously, we are just so obviously violating massive constraints on the range, that how ULA has determined it is safe to launch, how the range is letting them proceed like this is baffling. This is not.
They said
this
go
is not normal.
They said go pending. You know what it seems like they're doing?
But that is not normal. You either get a go or no go. You do not get a pending. So how this satisfies safe?
I'm gonna make a guess.
How
because
this
ULA
satisfies our
ULA keeps reiterating that the vehicle's ready to go, right? They keep doing the go, no go poll. Atlas checks out just fine, and they keep saying, this thing's ready to go, it's ready to go, it's ready to go, and it's the weather that's stopping it, so.
Yes, but here's the thing. The weather rules are written by ULA and enforced by the range. So ULA saying, we're go, the launch director giving permission to launch when the weather is in massive violation of the constraints is not normal. The range saying we're not going to give you an answer on this at your request just so you can get into terminal count is not normal.
I'm super
seems
curious.
To be a lot of ending of procedures going on today that, at least for me, are raising a lot of questions about this and how they're doing it. Also, no one's gotten out of their car, and we're still being told to stay in our cars.
And it's T-minus 3 minutes and just around
it's actually
3 minutes.
Heavier now than it was at the beginning of the 10:13 window. I can't see the launch pad. It's actually raining at the pad.
Oh, jeez. They've got a drone up. They've put a drone up, and we have drone footage. Because we actually saw the drone take off, live video from the drone taking off, and the drone is sort of flying past the pad. We're not getting rain on the camera right now. Like, we're not seeing the pad cameras get new rain.
Well, maybe the rain is between me and the pad. It definitely looks like it's from. But you know what?
Let's
go ahead and pull up the launch audio. Das, let's go ahead and pull up the audio and just listen to the count at this point, because we're 3 minutes in. They're manually monitoring. We know how this is going to end, but let's just listen to the count.
Yeah.
There's nothing else to say
y'all,
until they announce it started.
I want to point this out real quick. Remember, the ULA video that we get is on a delay. I just checked the delay, and it looks like ULA is running about a 30-second delay right now. That's normal. They're a big organization. We run like a 7-second delay because we don't have a lot of the overhead that they have. So when our countdown clock is going to go away, the United Launch Alliance countdown clock is the official one. You'll hear that audio from United Launch Alliance. But just keep in mind that this video that we're getting from ULA is about 30 seconds shy of live right now. It's not nearly as fast as our delay is. So I've got that audio turned up. And Chris, I'll sort of repeat some things back if I hear anything.
T-minus 1 minute, 59 seconds.
And we have a hold. At T-minus 1 minute and 45 seconds, a hold has been called.
Launch sequencer start.
Well, that's the scrub then, because they're out of window.
Securing Centaur LO2.
So we're going to hear that because of the delay here. I think Michael was listening to the real-time launch net.
Hold. MEQ, liftoff ratio exceedance.
MEQ liftoff ratio.
So that'll be ground winds then.
Yeah.
Clock is stopped at T-minus 1 minute 40 seconds. All personnel into the recycle steps. Operation 80.
Chris, get a load of this. They set the clock back to T-minus 4 minutes.
Oh no! When you get into the terminal count after T-minus 4, you recycle to T-minus 4. So that is the clock reset, because that's the first step to save the vehicle. It in no way means we're trying to date. We're out of window.
Right.
So that's
Roger.
it. Yeah.
LC, Prop 1.
Go Prop 1.
Propulsion and hydraulic systems are stable.
Roger.
So what they're going through now is just steps to safe the vehicle. As expected, this rocket is not going to space today. So what does that mean for our other launches? We have a window tomorrow.
Go flight control.
Flight control is ready to reset the clock to T-minus 4.
Yes.
Yeah, they're resetting the clocks and everything.
Roger.
We do not have the official launch window from ULA yet, but based on hazard zones, we expect a launch window around 9:14 tomorrow. That is 13:14 UTC.
Gotcha. And so that also means that the SpaceX launch is going to be pushed back, right?
Yes.
Yes.
And
so, yeah. Sorry, go ahead, Michael.
I was going to say the SpaceX launch for tomorrow had a high probability of unsatisfactory weather for recovery limits. So there's a good chance that the SpaceX launch would not have occurred anyway tomorrow due to recovery weather. So it's not a huge deal in that respect.
So what are Chris? What are you doing now? Are y'all gonna wait? Start caravanning back?
We're going to be caravanning back
Yeah.
here momentarily. Yes, you need to get off the phone and reposition the car accordingly. And since I'm not allowed to be on the phone while driving on Cape Canaveral Air Force Station property,
All right.
that'll do it for me.
Well, there you go, Chris. Again, thank you so much. Chris has to start getting the car set up for caravanning, driving out of there because he drove his personal car over to the ITO Causeway. Chris, thanks for setting this up for us. And that's rough to go out there and have to sit on the ITO Causeway and then know that it's going to be a scrub, but have to sit there anyways, dude. I feel you today.
Oh, it happens. But yeah, I think the biggest is that ULA and the range are definitely going to get a lot of inquiries from media companies about the seemingly really out of family way that this was handled today, especially United Launch Alliance's launch director and mission assurance people giving the go-ahead to proceed to launch with weather violations. That's just not how things are done. The range saying we're not going to give you an answer because you didn't ask for one.
I've never heard go pending. Never heard that.
And go pending when it just clearly was a violation. That's
super
I don't know.
weird.
It's going to be interesting because, like I said, I've got questions, so I know they're at least getting one inquiry from one.
Well, I'm sure you will ask the questions. You do what you need to do to get safe over there, and we'll take it from here, Chris. Okay.
Okay, sounds good, man. Well, I'll see both of you for the NSF live show later tonight, and for whatever Starship ends up doing today.
We'll be watching all of those things. We appreciate it, man.
All right, talk later, man.
All right. Okay, y'all. Well, I'll pop back over this way, and let's bring this back up on the screen. that is what was happening here today. We were standing by for that U.S. Space Force 7 launch, the Atlas 501, taking the X-37B space plane up to space. Super weird because the weather was not ideal. We knew going into the window our weather was a 40% go, so a 60% chance of violation. Over the window, and it wasn't even that long a window. As we got closer to the initial window at 8:23 this morning, the weather got even worse, and we ended up with a 20% chance of go. The weather deteriorated, I guess is the right way to say it. And so we saw United Launch Alliance push that window back. They had two opportunities today, the one at 8:23, 8:24 I think it was, and then another one at 10:13. They pushed back to that 10:13 window. They went to the end of the 10:13 window, which was 10:23, and I have never heard go pending before. I don't know if it's super weird. Like, I don't think they would have said that out loud if that wasn't something that had been discussed in part of their process, but I've never heard a go pending from weather like that, where they waited until literally the last seconds, less than 2 minutes before they called it and said, nope, as expected, this thing's not going anywhere. So, anyways, fighter jets do this all the time. I don't understand what fighter jets do this all the time. What do you mean, Doom Machine? Anyways, that was super curious. It's not something that I've personally ever seen before, a go pending, but as we all sort of expected, that launch is pushing till tomorrow. We'll get the official times like that and stuff. Chris will probably be back out there again. And you know something? I know how Chris is feeling right now. I exactly have been in that situation. When we did Parker Solar Probe, we were out there at 3 a.m. and you go out and you get everything set up, and then you sit, and then it's a window, and you wait, and then it ends up at a scrub. And it's always sort of a sort of feeling. I know exactly the way that it is, because Chris had to get up at something like 3 a.m. this morning to get all the equipment out there, etc., etc., etc. So once again, massive thanks to him for putting up with the vagaries of launch coverage. You never know if it's going to happen, and we're so at whim to the weather and stuff like that. So put some love in chat over there for Chris G, who is out there providing that live footage from, well, not the footage you were just seeing, but the NASA Spaceflight live footage until it started to rain, and we had to bring those cameras into the car to keep them from getting wet. So let's see here. Doom Machine says that's a military thing, actually. The military would sort of act in that manner where they would not cancel even though the weather was poor. They would wait until the last minute. Doom Machine, that's actually, I hadn't thought about it that way, but if it's a military launch or something, you see like fighter jets are spooled up on the runway and they know that they can't launch, but they're all sitting ready to go anyways until the last possible second. Maybe that is a military thing. I don't know. I'm sure that we'll ask some questions and we'll get some answers from people about, was that something that they had practiced? Is that something that they think about in advance? Was that a normal thing, or did somebody in a back room, like smoking a cigar, say, no, just go ahead and I don't think that that's what would have happened. But that's some good insight, I guess. Maybe that's a military sort of way of doing things. But anyways, we do have more things that are going to happen because of this. Because we had the launch that was delayed today, that's 24 hours till tomorrow. We don't know the exact time for the 37B launch with United Launch Alliance. That's going to make a range conflict with SpaceX, and I'm pretty sure that means that the SpaceX Starlink launch is also going to slip another 24 hours. Be pushed back 24 hours, I guess is the right way to say it. Also, we heard from Michael that the recovery weather for the Starlink launch wasn't great. So even if the launch weather was okay tomorrow, the weather in the recovery zones where the SpaceX boosters come down and land, that may have precluded them from launching because they would not be able to recover the booster, which is super important for Starlink missions because they want to reuse the things, right? So maybe there's a silver lining, maybe there's not. At the end of the day, United Launch Alliance was pretty clear, honestly, that the vehicle was ready to go today. It was the weather that was not cooperating, and they took it all the way down to the wire, trying to give the weather every chance that it could possibly get to shape up, to get in line so that they could launch that rocket. But the weather said, no, I'm in charge. I am not launching today. Yeah, I don't know what the deal with the comms is. Like, every time they did the go, no-go poll, and they're like, comms. And the person on comms never answered. Like, you'd think that one person would be on the communications net to answer, but who knows what's going on behind the scenes. Maybe the communications person had some communications difficulties. So anyways, that's sort of the summary of what we had going on today. What we had going on with OTV-6. That launch is pushed till tomorrow. That was a scrub due to weather. Starlink is also going to be pushed back. Looks like Starlink will not be until its next window. And then later today, we are still going to be doing NASA Spaceflight Live. So at 5 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, that's in about 6.5 hours from right now. We're going to be doing NASA Spaceflight Live, covering live space news, what happened this week, what's happening next week. And then also, we're standing by for Boca Chica. We know there's some road coverage or road closures and notices that have gone out for Boca Chica. We know that in their process, they're going to be looking for spin prime tests. They're looking at fueling the Starship SN4 that's down there. We know that they're working towards a static fire, and we know that they're also working towards a hop. So no hop scheduled right now, but we know that they're pushing towards those things like spin prime and static fire to get that hop ready to go. So if there is something going on down at Boca Chica, you can also expect to see us live. Chris is down at Cape Canaveral, but we also have Mary, Boca Chica gal, who is down at Boca Chica. They both have live view solos, they both have cameras, and we can spool up live camera feeds from both of those locations. Let me check in real quick and see current weather report at Boca Chica. I'm back in the studio. I'm getting a weather report saying that it's a monsoon at Boca Chica right now. So the weather may not cooperate for Boca Chica operations or SpaceX either today, but we are going to monitor those situations. And if there's something that seems, the weather clears up, something seems to happen out at Boca Chica, you can expect us to be here. And rain or shine, we'll be doing NASA Spaceflight Live at 5 p.m. Standard Time, Eastern Daylight Time, I guess. Eastern Daylight Time. 5 p.m. today. So once again, I appreciate everybody hanging out with us. I know that these things are a little bit, you don't always know what's going to happen with us, but I appreciate the people that hung out, super chats, people on my YouTube or on my channel that subbed or whatever. I appreciate everybody hanging out with us during our attempt that was scrubbed for the Atlas 501 carrying that X-37B as part of OTV-6 today. So I do believe that's going to be the end of this broadcast, and we will go ahead and sign off until next time for sure. We'll be back at 5 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time for NASA Spaceflight Live. Boca Chica, something happens, we'll be back for that. And then expect us tomorrow as well when United Launch Alliance tries the second attempt at getting this X-37B up into orbit. Hope the weather shapes up, and we will see you nerds later. Oh, in the meantime, I guess you can keep in touch with us. Follow us on Twitter at NASASpaceflight. There will be news, live streams, and stuff like that. If you're on the YouTube side, you know about ringing the bell or whatever and stuff, about turning on the notifications so it pops up on your phone or whatever. If you're on Twitch, you know how to find the channel on Twitch. I'm just saying. Don't forget the Bluebirds. Oh, Bluebird status update. The Bluebirds have already left the nest. Last Sunday, they were all out, and they are in the bushes, the trees around the house, sort of the forested area. So I can still hear them, but I haven't got eyes on a Bluebird in a couple days. Thank you for reminding me about the Bluebird status update over there. So, anyways, like I said, follow us on Twitter at NASASpaceflight. You know how to find us here on YouTube. This is the NASA Spaceflight channel. Over on Twitch, thank you for that one there. I appreciate you. You know where we are on Twitch. I'm Das Valdez over on Twitch. John Galloway with NASA Spaceflight. It's the same guy. He sounds the same at least. But thanks for the Bluebird update and stream. We will go ahead and spool it down for now and hope that weather clears up so that we see some things. But at the very least, we'll see you back here at 5 o'clock Eastern Daylight Time, about 6.5 hours from now. Okay, now I can say, later, nerds.
Propulsion continues to be normal. RCPA chamber pressure looks good. Following up.